Hello. Excuse me, everyone. If you can take your seats, we are about to start. Just waiting to sync with the music. I like the music, so we don't have the awkward silence while I ask people to grab their seats. So, hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2025 Future of Innovation Conference. I'm Igor Oliveira. I'm the program manager at the J. Herbert Smith Center. And I'm very proud to be part of the team behind this event. So every year, we bring inspiring and contemporary topics for discussion. This year is no different. We have amazing speakers and panelists from our community and beyond. So before we start, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that UNB stands on the unsurrendered and unceded traditional Wolastoqey land. The lands of the Wabanaki people are recognized in a series of peace and friendship treaties to establish an ongoing relationship of peace, friendship, and mutual respect between equal nations. The river that runs by our university is known as Wolastoq, along which live Wolastoqey, the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. Wolastoq is also called the St. John River. To start us off, I'd like to invite Dr. Kathy Wilson, Vice Provost, Learning and Student Experience, to say a few words on behalf of the university.
Thank you, Igor. And good afternoon, everybody. It's really a pleasure to welcome you to the Future of Innovation Conference, hosted by the J. Herbert Smith Center for Technology, Management, and Entrepreneurship here at the University of New Brunswick. I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to the incredible team at the J. Herbert Center. Your dedication and vision has brought together an outstanding program and a vibrant community of thinkers, innovators, and change makers, and that would be all of you. We're also very grateful for RBC for their support. Their sponsorship helps make this event possible and reflects a shared commitment to fostering innovation and meaningful change. And to that end, I'd like to thank Michael Seri, the Manager of Business Markets at RBC, for being here today and for your ongoing support. I was surprised to learn that this year marks the 37th year of this conference, a legacy of sparking ideas and building connections that benefit local, national, and international communities and companies. We're honored to have Dr. Farokhi, the president of St. Thomas University, with us today. And I'm sure that he agrees that as a public university, we have a responsibility to create positive change in our province and beyond. At UNB, innovation is the heart of everything that we do. We believe in empowering people to tackle complex challenges and create solutions that are both bold and sustainable. That spirit is especially alive in our students, who bring a perspective of curiosity and energy to every conversation. And I had an opportunity to have some conversations while I was waiting to come in here today. So I'm delighted to see what our students will be able to bring to the discussions today. Your voices are essential and in shaping the future. This year's focus brings together two powerful lenses: systems thinking and artificial intelligence. These approaches are transforming how we understand problems and how we design solutions that drive real-world impact now and in the future. We're honored to welcome keynote speakers James Stouch and Matt Sims, along with a remarkable lineup of panelists who are applying these ideas to research, entrepreneurship, and social innovation. You really do have an inspiring program ahead of you, and I encourage you to fully connect with others. This is a space for learning, collaboration, and collision. So thank you all for being here, and I wish you a most successful event.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Now, please welcome Dr. Adriana Shukla, the chair of the J. Herbert Smith Center, to say a few words.
Well, this conference is very special. And, you know, Igor and Amanda, the key role they played when this conference got sold out 4 times. And people were saying, what are you going to do? We'll go and just stand there at the back. Are you going to throw us out? So, you know, a real round of applause to the both of them. Because all I did was I said, you know, Igor and Amanda will sort it out, right? I just shifted everything to them. Look, this conference particularly has been extremely special because we have incredible entrepreneurs, incredible people from the UNB community, from our overall region that are coming together, and it's a sign that we are really have done a lot to break the silos, not only at an institutional level, but also across the region, across different parts of our society. And this just simply means that everyone in this room sitting here are very unique, very special, and thank all of you for coming and embracing and doing an amazing job. So thank you to all of you for being who you are. You know, we started this conference several years back, and to see when we started, there were two people that were in that class. You know, the CEO of Bosron, David Shipley, and Jake Arsenal, the CEO of BlackArcs, and Susan Holt was also in the class. And so the expectation from all of you in this room, they need to push it up a little bit further. One could argue I'm still doing the same thing 16 years later. Maybe I need to push it. But, you know, pushing it all on you, sending you guys a lot of love and affection and energy to do incredible things. What was particularly unique and special is RBC saw what we were doing and gave us one of the largest funding they had in Atlantic Canada. Gave us at the time $1 million that has been literally a lifeline for us, and how they continue to come in and be engaged in all things entrepreneurship, innovation, building a better community, a stronger community. They have been a partner that has never said no about being involved, doing crazy things, being on this journey with us. So incredible pleasure to bring Michael Suri to say a few words. Thank you.
I always hate being the tall guy and doing that to everybody when I get there. It's okay. But someone else will adjust it. It'll be okay. So thank you, Dhirendra. Thank you, everybody here. And good afternoon. I'm Mike Suri. I'm the manager of business markets for New Brunswick, and I am very pleased to be here representing RBC. You know, Dhirendra's kind words kind of remind me of it's been almost 10 years now since we made that initial $1 million commitment to the J. Herbert Center for Technology, Management and Entrepreneurship. And when we look at what that investment's done, just seeing, you know, the students, the faculty, the innovators involved in this conference, you know, seeing it thrive and bringing together some bright minds in technology and innovation, it is inspiring. At RBC, we are committed to the future of financial services with world-class technology and innovation. In fact, we believe that innovation is going to be the engine for our transformation. And our innovation commitment covers really 4 key areas. You may have heard some of this in the media, but First is really leveraging the power of AI and data-driven insights through RBC Borealis. That is our dedicated AR research center and creating exceptional client, colleague, and community experiences through that. Number two is helping clients bank safely and securely through cybersecurity capabilities. Three is leading digital transformation to elevate the client experience that our 9.9 million active digital users and 7.8 million active clients using the RBC mobile app. And lastly, developing scalable, resilient, best-in-class technology and infrastructure that powers our bank across millions of transactions every day. Now, as I travel across New Brunswick, meeting hundreds of small and medium-sized business owners, I'm constantly reminded of the importance of innovation and technology and how it's driving competitiveness. But I also hear about the challenges our business community faces to keep pace with this rapid change in technology. That's why events like this are so crucial. They are a way to be able to provide a platform for business leaders of tomorrow to learn from today's experts and stay up to date with the latest trends and tools and foster a culture of collaboration and creativity, those collision points that make all the difference. So I encourage all of you to make the most of our time together today. Ask questions, challenge assumptions, explore new ideas. Let's work together to drive innovation and growth in our province and beyond. And to our speakers and attendees, thank you for being a part of today's event. I wish all of us that we get to have a wonderful afternoon together, and I look forward to seeing some of the amazing things that we're going to come out of this conference. So thank you again for having me and RBC here. Thank you so much.
Maybe I don't need to adjust it. Maybe, yeah. A little bit. Thank you. Thanks, Michael. And thank you, RBC, for the ongoing support all these years. Let me flip my pages here, because I'm not like Deandra. I need my notes. So, all right, back on track. The first broad topic that our conference is going to explore is systems thinking, right? I'm not sure how many of you have heard about it, but after today, I'm sure that it is something that will be on your radar, right? As it provides a powerful lens to understand complexity, identify leverage points, and design more effective solutions. And that's one of the key things about entrepreneurship, right? I started to learn more about systems thinking and its importance through Dr. Kush Buber. And he'll be a part of our panel later on. And he's an associate professor and founder and director of the System Level Model Development Engineering Lab, long name, so SysModel, right? Cool. It's a lab with a unique strategic focus on applying systems methodologies in practical and collaborative ways. So I'd like to invite Dr. Buber to introduce our first speaker. They know each other, and he'll be able to say better words, more accurate words about our speaker. So, Dr. Buber, please.
Thank you, Igor. I don't know if better words, but perhaps different words.
But accurate, more knowledge.
Oh, yeah. So thank you very much for the introduction. I have the real privilege here of introducing our first keynote, James Stotch. And I've been told I'm only allowed 2 minutes, so I'm not going to do him justice, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a glimpse. So James is a social innovation and systems change educator and sense maker. He's based at the moment in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. Recently moved here, so such a privilege to have James come to our region. He co-chairs the Banff Systems Summit and serves as a complex systems strategist at ATCO with their Space Lab. And is a visiting fellow at the Skoll Center in the Said School of Business at the University of Oxford. And He's also the founding executive director at the Institute for Community Prosperity at Mount Royal University. And as that executive ED there, he helped build the learning programs and inviting students and community partners really to like experience complexity. We tend to have this, we're very uneasy with complexity. And it's something that's challenging. And so James understands that if we're going to make real change, we have to be able to first have the ability to sit with complexity. He is one of the authors of this book. I'm asked for it, so 55 minutes. I have read this book. It's fantastic. I just want to be clear about that. And James, I believe, is going to be giving these books out later, so please take them if you have an opportunity. It's an atlas to navigate problems, reveal systems, and ask beautiful questions. If you don't know what a beautiful question is, you should read Warren Berger's book. And it's a field guide, so it has a bunch of methods in each of these chapters, and so it's accessible. If anybody knows, I built a course on systems thinking, and I'm a voracious reader, and I had to read a ton of literature, and almost all of it's in this book. It's unbelievable. So I first met James through the Map the System competition in 2024 at Mount Royal University. And what struck me immediately was that he doesn't just talk about systems thinking, he lives as a systems thinker. And he asks beautiful questions. He creates space for others to really think critically. And he pushes boundaries and with absolutely incredible humility, which is unbelievable. You can see that in the Anita PC learning circles at Mount Royal. It's these ethical spaces that are created for Indigenous and non-Indigenous people and learners to sit with elders and with knowledge keepers and learn, reflect, and move towards reconciliation. And I had a tiny privilege of participating through the Banff Systems Summit in one of these circles, and I felt it was emotional for me. I have to say, it was unbelievable, and to create a space like that, it's brilliant. Beyond titles and publication, I think James just shows up for people. So he's been mentoring our students here at UNB and through the J. Herbert Smith Center. I just asked him, hey, would you want to do this? And knowing he's an incredibly busy person, I assume no. And the reality, the response was yes, yes, yes. And so his motivation is simply that he believes that understanding systems is the first step to changing them, and that recognizing that the young people are craving change. And so we need to nourish them. Gosh, that's just a tiny fraction. And so please welcome me in joining a generous scholar practitioner, a patient teacher, and a catalyst for meeting change, James Stouch.
Wow. Thank you, Kush, for that way too generous introduction. And thank you to you, Darindra, Igor, Amanda, all of your colleagues at the Herbert Smith Center, J. Herbert Smith Center, for putting this event on. This is a very cool event, and I love that the center itself brings together, and this event, not just engineering and entrepreneurship, which are two things that do belong together and often aren't, but brings together and attracts others from so many other disciplines. So your commitment to sort of interdisciplinarity, to futures thinking. We had a great conversation this morning with Dom about futures. And of course, to systems is really rare and admirable. So really well done. And it's, by the way, it's a real treat to be here back in Fredericton. I've only been here once before, and it was last year. It was Canada Day, and we were making the 6,000 kilometer trek from Alberta to Nova Scotia, and everything up until that point was going way too good. Like the car didn't break down, and everything was going fine. We pull up. It was a beautiful day. We got a VIP-ish parking spot right outside the Beaverbrook Art Gallery, and that was on my bucket list. Needed to see the Beaverbrook Gallery. We were going to celebrate Canada Day down on the waterfront, listen to bands and everything, and then something happened. Our horn on our car stopped working, which meant that it started blowing, and we couldn't stop it. We couldn't even turning off the ignition wouldn't stop it. So we literally had to find like a farmer's field out of town, and then fumble through like these German instructions to turn off to pull the right fuse. But in the process, it was so embarrassing. It's a really loud horn. We were right downtown, and people were like, Alberta plates. So it was mortifying. So coming back here could have sort of induced PTSD. but I can guarantee that nothing I say will be as obnoxious as the first time I was in Fredericton. So today, I know there's this dual theme of systems and AI, and I'm actually going to, this is crazy, but I'm going to try and touch on both. They're very hot topics. And who among us hasn't said, for example, waiting in emergency rooms to get care, or looking for a primary healthcare provider, or puzzling over the cost of food and energy and housing going through the roof, that the system is broken, or that somehow, if you're more cynical, the system is rigged. But we invoke this word systems all the time. Now, we're a very highly educated people, on paper. Canadians have more post-secondary cred and degrees, on average, than really any other nation on Earth. So we should be smart enough to fix these broken systems, right? And now, with our digital companions, generative, increasingly agentic AI, we should be even better equipped to solve these sticky problems. But this, so far at least, seems not to be the case. So for this talk, I'm going to draw on two publications. The first, which Kush mentioned, is the 55 Minutes. On the break, you'll see there's a table near the back that will be revealed as having, I think, 100 copies of the book. So hopefully it's not a stampede to the table, and hopefully some of you actually take the book. So, but thank you to ATCO for providing that. By the way, you can download a PDF of the book at the55minutes.com, which is, and it's provided free for a whole variety of reasons. But ATCO, which is the sponsoring organization that paid for the book and that uses the book in its own corporate training and cultural development, really wants to make sure that the world sees the book, the world gets exposed to systems thinking, and they want to share widely and broadly. So the book helps you understand the broader context, the nature, the depth, the origins, the potential trajectories of a problem that your innovation is trying to address. And then, in turn, the systems that produce the problem in the first place or that keep it in place. George Constantinescu, who's the Executive VP and Chief Transformation Officer at ATCO, he wrote the foreword to the book, which is well worth reading. If you only read one part of the book, read the foreword. And he says in it, "We are not students of some subject matter, but students of problems." So ATCO Space Lab, which George founded, was integral to the completion and promotion of the book. ATCO, as a broader company, of course, has lots of different business interests across many different industries. They're perhaps best known for providing modular housing, the third largest provider of modular construction in the world. But they also, interestingly, are a family-controlled company. They're publicly traded, but family-controlled. And what that means is that they're interested in things like legacy, especially intergenerational legacy. So what does that mean? That means that there are certain capacities that you need to build into the company for that long-term, you could call it corporate longevity, sustainability, but it's things like anti-fragility. It's things like adaptive capacity, requisite variety, which I'll talk about later, futures capacities, and certainly systems awareness, not just your own system or your industries, but what's happening in the broader culture, society, what's going on in the world, being deeply aware and deeply awake to that. And so you can imagine that such a kind of commitment also has this fringe benefit of attracting a lot of bright young minds. So speaking of bright minds, sorry, I forgot to forward this. Again, you can download it for free. The book takes its inspiration, the book title, from an alleged, although never proven, aphorism that Albert Einstein said. He said, if he was tasked with solving a difficult problem and his life depended on it, or the world depended on it, he would spend the first 55 minutes just thinking about the problem, and only the last 5 minutes doing anything about it, acting. Acting could be planning or design or policy development or invention or any other kind of intervention. But of course, we live in a contemporary culture and time where really it's the last 5 minutes that's valued. That's where the incentives are. That's where the money is. That's where the attention is. So when we look at the landscape of innovation modalities, skills, stages, whether it's in the context of labs or incubators or accelerators, even in academic settings, apart from some data analytics work, some user experience work, there really is little attention to understanding the problem. It's almost as if problems are sort of universally understood. And so all the effort goes into things like product design, right? Or engineering, or IP and go-to-market strategies, scaling, and so on. So a pertinent question to ask is, well, what is a market? Well, this is a market. It's an obvious forum for exchange. And this is a market. A cryptocurrency mine is a locus of consensus about the content of the blockchain, the validity of the transactions. But market also refers to latent demand. So Ash Maurya, who was the creator of the Lean Canvas tool, he notes that people are more likely to pay to get out of something they don't like than they are to pay for something they might like. So people want to pay for a problem to disappear, or at least to be relieved in some way. So this means that if you aren't thinking about the problem, you don't understand your market. It's common sense, but it's not common practice. So even though the word innovation used to have quite a bit of baggage, it used to refer to things like heresy, rebellion, I think it's now viewed as pretty universally beneficial, even if none of us can really define what it means. But everyone, it's sort of a Rorschach test, right? Everyone sees what they want to see in innovation, which means that all kinds of incremental programs or shallow ideas for misunderstanding problems are among the bycatch captured in the innovation net. And with few exceptions, these products of innovation tend to be labeled solutions. So many prominent voices in innovation, think of Michael Porter or Clay Christensen, Eric Ries, who wrote about Lean Startup, they've all highlighted the idea that a poor understanding of the problem and the wider context is often the primary reason why ventures fail. According to research by Ramesh Menon and Lena James, approximately 90% of startups fail in their first year. 70% shut down within 2 to 5 years. So it follows that problem understanding, and then by extension systems thinking, might be an important missing tool in business development. As one book reviewer noted, he said, the 55 minutes helps you avoid wasting time, money, effort, energy, and resources building something no one will pay for. So as we started to scan the business literature, it became very clear, even when some of the great contributors to systems thinking actually come from management, people like Russell Ackoff, for example, or corporate planning or organizational behavior backgrounds, that actually systems practice is largely missing from business schools and from commercial innovation. And so you see it in conversations about social innovation, but less so in the commercial space. So let's dig into this a bit more. And I promise I will, if there's time, talk about the book. But because you all get the book, you'll find out what's in the book. So it'll be a luxury if we can talk about the book. But I want to dig into this question here. So in the entrepreneurship space, we hear a lot of talk about grit, perseverance. Those are rightly valued, right? There will be naysayers who will shut your idea down. They'll shoot it down. And stick with your ideas no matter how often it gets shut down. Prove the doubters, the haters wrong, goes the advice. And that's good advice. But it's also good advice to not just heed that advice, right? So grit is admirable, but it can turn into stubbornness if you're willfully ignorant of the landscape, of what's going on out there, and of context. And the similar kind of dynamic with audaciousness, right? If audaciousness is not paired with thoughtfulness, it's really just empty bravado. So, as I write in the book, Silicon Valley has helped manufacture a hero mythos around innovation. Valiant innovators riding high on microdosed flashes of insight, change the world panaceas, and move fast and break stuff, chariots of glory. The founder of Meta being particularly smitten with the life and legacy of the Roman Emperor Augustus. But when it comes to the social sphere, when dealing with often very tricky human dynamics, like dementia, or refugee settlement, or youth gang involvement, moving fast and breaking stuff means the stuff you'll be breaking are human beings, or community and familial bonds, or social capital, or once flourishing ecosystems, or once functioning polities of rational democratic discourse. So moving fast and breaking stuff has even come to define our geopolitics, creating global instability and added risk, not just economic, not just environmental, but existential. So these days, even most technological innovations, whether it's fintech, health tech, age tech, agri-tech, go on, gene editing, AI, robotics, it's going to involve significant consequences for humans anyway, as producers, as consumers, or as people whose jobs might be in jeopardy, or as communities that might be unwitting recipients of the unanticipated or unintended consequences of the innovation. So yes, Silicon Valley has set out to change the world, and they are doing it, but a golden goose is capable of laying many rotten eggs, as we say in the book. So when this kind of version of what you might call prolific heroism meets the slower, sober slog of systems understanding, there really is serious cognitive dissonance. One of our reviewers, Pascal Finette, who worked for years in the Valley, and more recently wrote a book called Disrupting Disruption, he's based in Boulder, remarked that the 55 minutes is a radical act of necessary defiance against the innovation theater, his words, that prioritizes superficial fixes over real change. It forces the crucial pause, the deep dive into understanding the actual problem before we waste precious energy on superficial fixes. So we maintain that we live in a kind of solutions exhibitionist culture and time. And that's true in the private sector, but it's also true in government, it's true in civil society, even certain domains of academia, where we're encouraged to pitch or hack or design sprint our way to rapid solutions. But the premature hack or the quick sprint is not necessarily a recipe for failing forward. It can be a recipe for failing, period. Kyung-Hee Kim, who has been chronicling the decline of creativity in America beginning in the 1990s, observes that children and students are spending far more time problem solving than problem finding. It is in the discovery and the explanation of problems that creativity lies. And innovation cannot exist without creativity. Solutionism in a context of complexity cannot help but be veneer, not substance. It tacitly ignores that all of our contemporary human problems are produced and sustained by one or more systems that were once themselves designed as solutions. So it follows that today's solutions will produce the problems of tomorrow, which is a good segue, of course, to the next publication I want to quickly return to. Before I do that, I want to mention this story. I was in one of the many used bookstores in Lunenburg about 6 weeks ago, and I picked this book up for $5. It was written in 1966. It's called A Comprehensive Review of the Extraordinary New Technology of Information, produced by Scientific American. And I have to read you the last two paragraphs of an essay in here by an MIT electrical engineering prof at the time, a guy named Marvin Minsky. The essay, by the way, is simply called Artificial Intelligence. Once we have devised programs with a genuine capacity for self-improvement, a rapid evolutionary process will begin. As the machine improves both itself and its model of itself, we shall begin to see all the phenomena associated with the terms consciousness, intuition, and intelligence itself. It is hard to say how close we are to this threshold, but once it is crossed, the world will not be the same. It is reasonable, I suppose, to be unconvinced by our examples and to be skeptical about whether machines will ever be intelligent. It is unreasonable, however, to think machines could become nearly as intelligent as we are and then stop, or to suppose we will always be able to compete with them in wit or in wisdom. Whether or not we could retain some sort of control over the machines, assuming that we would want to, the nature of our activities and aspirations would be changed utterly by the presence on Earth of intellectually superior beings. 1966. So just before the pandemic and the lockdown measures commenced, I co-authored a report with Alina Turner, who's a social entrepreneur who uses machine learning to help improve social service systems and housing, affordable housing systems and so on. So we came up with this book, this report that we called In Search of the Altruism, which is a portmanteau of algorithm and altruism. And it looked at the current uses, the speculative impacts, good, bad, and ugly, of AI with respect to social impact. Now, in retrospect, its central conclusion sounds actually kind of naively, blithely techno-optimist, but I'll read it anyway. AI can be made to be generative, beautiful, and not merely ethical, but rationally compassionate and just, enriching our lives beyond what we can currently imagine. But it will only do so if civil society, including citizens living at the margins and people involved in social good pursuits, whether that's artists and teachers to health professionals, social workers, become much more interested and involved. So we need those people at the conversation table. By the way, you can find a much more approachable summary of this report. There's 2 open access, very quick to read articles, which you can find at thephilanthropist.ca. And of course, since these were written, I mean, it seems almost quaint to put that up on the screen, because we've seen rapid deployment and recursive improvement of large language models. We've seen the use of AI-enabled and autonomous weapons of war in the Ukraine and Gaza incursions. We've seen shrinking time horizons around the predicted dawn of AGI, and the potential emergent results, both positive and deeply troubling, of generative models working in tandem, what Dr. Susan Schneider calls the AI megasystem problem. We're very likely, right now, in an AI market bubble, because we're in a kind of trough of disillusionment, I think, around the functional limitations for business and so far obscured monetizability of this early generation of tools. But AI, make no mistake, is here to stay. And despite the profundity of many of the issues that can be mapped on a global catastrophic risk assessment, so take your pick: climate and biodiversity crisis, infodemic, ever-present threat of nuclear war, fungal pandemic, so on. The only one issue, though, currently within our control is a genuine potential, and that is AI. Or broadly speaking, AI is working in tandem to produce some form of superintelligence. So our world right now and always has been marked by what I call magnificent complexity. How much time do I have, by the way? We're good? Okay. The planet is not just filled with 8 billion of us, complex human beings, relying on complex ecosystems to breathe, eat, drink, recycle our waste. But when you bring in things like big data, online connectivity, AI, and so many other features of modernity that are amplifying the volume of information and the number and diversity of relationships in our systems, which then in turn amplify not just the complexity itself, the ontological complexity, if you like, but also our perception of the complexity, the cognitive complexity. So our brains are further complexifying this complexity, and it's helping induce, I think, an epidemic of anxiety, especially among young people. It's not the only reason, but I think it's a major contributor. But complexity exists between the realms of the ordered and the disordered, or the chaotic. At one end of the spectrum, so if you go to the very, very big, right, we have universal rules that mean we can predict the behavior of entire solar systems and galaxies with astonishing precision. So we know that the next total solar eclipse to visit Atlantic Canada will be Monday, May 1st, 2079, lasting from 7:06 a.m. to 7:13 a.m. By the way, you'll have to travel just a couple kilometers, I think, south or east of Fredericton to be in the zone of totality, which is well worth doing. I've seen 2 total solar eclipses now, and I'm hooked. In the quantum realm, so the very small, we're constantly dealing with probabilities, right? No precision in a classical sense. It has to do with the particles existing in a superposition, possible states until measured, et cetera, et cetera. And right in between the extremes of the very small and the very big, between the quantum and the cosmic, is us. The human, the social, the biological, the ecological, all of the systems that we employ, rely upon, and interact with are in this mid-realm. And virtually all of these systems can be described legitimately as complex. So complex meaning the boundaries are contested and there are nonlinear and non-determinate effects. There are many other features of a complex system. I'm not going to get into a huge explanation of that, but just trust me, it's complex. So, for all the practical intents and purposes, I think, therefore, this complexity is the way of our world. It's their default state. And by the way, it's not new. And we better get comfortable with it if we are to progress as a species. But here's the problem. Our brains are tempted to think otherwise. So in the Western world, not just in schools of engineering, we tend toward the comfort of the graspable, the quantifiable, the data-driven. We like definitions, we like categories, boxes, disciplines, clear identities, whether those be of ethnic, national, religious, sexual, or gender varieties, and other such boxes for organizing and delimiting. We generally prefer binaries to ambiguity or paradox. We prefer static models to dynamic simulations. We prefer encrypting meaning, not in visual pictures, but in text, numeric equations, lines of code. The Mi'kmaq concept of etuapta-munk, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, or two-eyed seeing, where one metaphorical eye sees the best that the Western Enlightenment has to offer, while the other sees the best that indigenous ways of knowing have to offer. This is a much more appropriate tool that we need. So this is kind of like, if any of you are familiar with the work of Ian McGilchrist, he's highlighted the distinctions between the left and the right hemisphere and how those two hemispheres attend to the world, right? Our left hemisphere, the Western eye, helps us map, model, analyze, count, linguistically categorize. The right, or you might call the indigenous eye, helps us synthesize, see connections, wholes, the broader context, observing flows, observing vast timescales, going back generations, going forward generations. So thinking in this way, there are people who think this way. So one of the terms that's come up in the last decade or so is the notion of the Anthropocene, right? This idea that we actually future humans will be able to dig and discover a stratigraphic geological layer that is a signature of our time on Earth, our civilizational time on Earth. The James Lovelock, who was famous for coming up with the Gaia hypothesis, kind of interesting systems thinker, he wrote more recently that we had also prepared for something called the Novacene, the post-Anthropocene, the next stage, which will be dominated not by us, but potentially by hyper-intelligent mechanical technology. And in many ways, the pandemic accelerated our journey down this digital path: teleworking, telehealth, online shopping, digital currencies, much more mainstream. And we have already changed as a species pretty profoundly to develop a kind of symbiosis with these technologies. But we will continue further down that path. So Kai-Fu Lee, for example, who wrote a book called AI Superpowers, Silicon Valley, The New World Order, we need a blueprint for coexistence, he says. By the way, there's an amazing book that Henry Kissinger co-authored. I won't get into detail. I'm going to skip over that one, but it's fascinating how one of the last things that Henry Kissinger focused on was this emergence of superintelligent AI and what it means for political systems, social systems, and so on, our social contracts, our value structures. So that was a bit of an excursion, and I will come back to AI and integrate it with systems. But I just want to say, if you're thinking, systems thinking, that's maybe a luxury of academics or academia, but does this really apply in the real world? The World Economic Forum polled employers and asked, hey, what are the important skills, the core skills that we need for 2030? And systems thinking was deemed not a nice to have, but a must have. And that's employers saying that, which honestly, I was surprised because I haven't seen amongst a lot of larger companies a lot of talk of systems thinking, but that's really encouraging. So I'm not going to spend much time talking about what's in the book. I'll just briefly mention there's about a third of the book is about foundations. These are diving into foundational or fundamental pieces of understanding complexity, understanding systems, what is a system, understanding how you research in that vein, what is mapping useful? And it's probably worth noting here, when I was talking to Kush and preparing for this, he's like, well, there may be members of the audience that may be like, what is a system? What are you talking about? Systems thinking, what's that all about? So I apologize, I probably should have put this at the beginning of my talk, but systems are, bottom line, systems are everywhere. They're made up of three simple components. So every system that we can possibly think of is made of stuff. You can call it elements or parts or nodes. Every system has some kind of interconnection between those parts that in turn produces an emergent function. Something has emerged that didn't exist with just a heap of the parts itself. When you start to think about where this applies, it applies to virtually everything we see or touch or feel or experience. Families are systems, right? Atoms and molecules are systems. It's systems all the way down and all the way up. And so once you start thinking in this way, you start recognizing, literally everything is a system. They're everywhere. Our brains, us as people, our languages, the technologies, the books. If you take the example of a coin or a banknote, right? It's either just like a piece of paper, now polymer. Well, that's all it is. That's all it literally is. But of course, it's not that. It's worth something. Well, why is it worth something? Because we have systems that are based on trust that have deemed it worthy of allocating value, right? So we have all kinds of emergent things that come out of that. We have market transactions. We have commercial trade and finance out of that exchange value, right? We have the invisible hand of the market. We have prosperity. All those things are systems. Systems thinking is first and foremost about thinking. It's a form of intelligence, right? So to be a good economist, to be a good policy analyst, to be a good CEO, you actually need to incorporate virtually all of these practices in what you do. Each of these practices we go into a lot of detail in the book, so I'm not going to belabor it in any detail. I'll wait for them to finish listing. And then, how am I doing for time?
We're kind of now at the
Now,
switching point. But
okay,
we
okay,
can-
great. I'll just wrap up. There's just a few quick concepts that I wanted to quickly burn through. I won't spend much time on this. One is called Edge of Chaos. This is a little heuristic that basically says most learning, most innovation, most of any time excellence is present in a system, in a human system, a social system. It's usually because it's at the edge of chaos, meaning it's not in a safe, stable basin of attraction, but it's actually flirting with chaos. Now think about your business unit, your organization, the markets that represent this, and you'll quickly recognize that there's a very strong connection between edge of chaos and innovation. So we go into that detail in the book on that. Another one is this concept of requisite variety. Basically, this comes out of evolutionary biology. It's the notion that if you have more possible states in a system, it can better weather and anticipate and adapt to changes in the external environment. So the more possible states you have, and that's induced by all kinds of forms of diversity, you will withstand or become more anti-fragile in the faces of changes in the environment, including like black swan events. So when you think about it, well, the app universe is like maybe the best commercial example I can think of, where when the iPhone came out in 2007, people were like, cool toy. You know, this is really beautiful. This is really cool, but it's never gonna beat the BlackBerry. Like, we're not gonna get rid of our tactile keyboards. But of course, within a year, it had taken off, and it had taken off because of the app universe. Because it was not just a phone, it's everything. It's everything that you use apps for. And it's now indistinguishable from really ourselves, our own cognition, our own identities. We freak out if we lose our phone, which is an interesting test of this same heuristic or rule around what's the requisite variety in our own minds? What's our requisite variety in our companies, in our governments, and so on? Okay, so I just wanted to highlight those two tools. There are many others that are really interesting analogs for innovation. The heart of the book is a tools section. This is 2/3 of the book, where we go into 30 different forms of tools. We describe how we've used it, how you could use it, how you could adapt it. And they are really structured around questions. So like, where do we focus? How do we set boundaries? What are the contours of the system? What are the roots? What's beneath the surface? How do we get here? Where might we be going? How is this system experienced by those living it and the supposed intended beneficiaries of a system? Who's involved? How are they connected? What does that mean? Who holds power? Who benefits from the system as it is? What causes what to do what in the system? What ways of thinking keep the problem in place? Many of these are deeply, deeply, deeply set and entrenched. And then finally, where in the system might change be possible? So these sort of 11 analog clock chapters constitute our metaphorical 55 minutes. There is a chapter, the end chapter, on acting, but it's not a guide to acting. It's simply stressing the point that when you act, the action doesn't just come at the end. You can actually act throughout. It's a constant dialogue and an interplay between action and reflection. So, systems and AI, I might actually save that. There's some really obvious and interesting connections between systems and AI. You know, they have conjoined histories. If you look at the history of computer science and the history of early systems thinking that Kush should be really familiar with, they actually came out of many of the same places, and many of the same innovators were both people like John von Neumann or people like von Bertalanffy or Forrester, Jay Forrester. But they've kind of gone in their own trajectories, and I think it's really, really important to bring them back for all kinds of reasons. Geoffrey Hinton, who so-called godfather, one of the godfathers of AI, one of the things he reminds us that we really need to pay attention to is that you can't apply just a sort of reductionist reverse engineering lens to figure out why AI makes decisions, because it makes decisions based on neural networks that he won a Nobel Prize developing, artificial neural networks. Therefore, AI reasons in much the same way, or much more similar to the way animals reason, not the way we expect computerized systems to reason. That's why when you put in a prompt, you put in the same prompt again an hour later, and you'll get a totally different result. Those are emergent results from a complex system. And the more we can kind of lean into really understanding that, we're going to become less prone to produce students who are certainty junkies and more prone to produce students who lean into the beautiful questions that the world is offering up to us right now. So I'll stop there. I'll ask my panelists to join me on the stage next. And Igor, over to you to introduce them. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you. Very insightful presentation. I will invite our panelists, Dr. McGill, Dr. Bubber, and Dr. Maitland, just to join him on the stage, and I will do a short introduction of them once they're seated. Because it's always, we never know how to do this. Should we call them one by one and then clap and all that? So now we're going to have them all there, and I will read a version of their bios. You have their complete bios in the website. So starting from your right, my left, we have Dr. Ellen McGill. She's an assistant professor at UNB's Faculty of Nursing and holds the Honorable John Kingston Research Chair in Health Innovation. She directs the Health Systems Lab, where her research applies a systems thinking methodology, the functional resonance analysis method, to gain an enhanced understanding of complex health and social care processes and to redesign services for equity-deserving populations. So, next, we have Dr. Jules Maitland. She's the founder and managing director of All In Research and Innovation, Inc., a public service design and social change agency. An experienced researcher, designer, and strategic thinker, she connects the dots between people, problems, and possibilities to identify opportunities for social impact. She has a PhD in computer science from University of Glasgow and a multidisciplinary background in nursing, human-computer interaction, digital health, and social innovation. Finally, Dr. Kush Bubber is a systems engineering professional and associate professor here at UNB. And as mentioned earlier, he's the founder and director of the SysModel Lab. And he also developed an undergraduate course where students understand systems thinking and work on a project that the winning team here presents at the National Map the System competition, right? And it's pretty exciting to see them there every year. Dr. Bubber is committed to linking systems theory with practice to deliver tangible benefits to collaborators, all with a pragmatic orientation on how systems thinking can shape the future of innovation in Canada and beyond. So thank you all for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Igor, and thank you to all of the panelists for joining me here. So I'm gonna maybe start with you, Alexis, and then Jules, and then Kush, and then maybe go in reverse order and see how we do. Alexis, the leadership writer James Clear notes that we do not rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. So in your work on complex health, social care processes, your efforts to tackle, I guess, the systemic barriers to healthcare for refugees, to what degree has systems thinking been useful to you? Can you and tell us a little bit, take the opportunity to tell us a bit about FRAM, any of the other concepts, frameworks that you use in that work?
Okay, thank you. In refugee care, I'm new to academia. I've just been here at UNB for 2 years. So I worked for 21 years as a registered nurse and nurse practitioner. I worked mostly in emergency and urgent care in St. John, New Brunswick. So I did have care with refugee patients. I found the process really challenging for them, was very challenging for myself as a healthcare professional. I remember feeling moral distress, worry. Did I do a good job? Am I doing the right thing? And it never sat well with me as a healthcare professional. We like to know what we're doing, and I felt like I didn't. So I remember that feeling. I did my PhD. It was one of those situations where I'll tell you all here, if somebody presents you an opportunity and it sounds scary but invigorating, do it. Because I was a PhD student on another pathway. I was looking at advanced practice roles for registered nurses and nurse practitioners in New Brunswick. And I had 2 engineers from Memorial University approach me and say, would you like to learn systems thinking? And would you like to apply systems thinking in a specific methodology to examine healthcare processes? And I said, I don't know. And teach me. And 5 minutes of hearing about systems thinking, it changed I had done courses, I had written proposal, and I abandoned it. I threw away the PhD I was on track to do, and I changed schools, and I was here at UMB, and then I left, and then I went to Memorial. Yeah, but I was able to learn this approach to understanding how something works before we start to make changes. And I learned how to do that in terms of community care for older adults. I applied the methodology there, and then I came back here to UMB. And I'll tell you more about it with refugee care. I went to work at the downtown clinic as part of my assignment as an assistant professor and still working clinician. I work 1 day a week seeing patients still. And I asked the staff, what is the greatest challenge you're facing here at the Fredericton Downtown Community Health Center? And they said refugee care. And I thought to myself, yeah, I remember. I know what that feels like. And I said, okay, I'm gonna work on that. And I didn't wait for a big CIHR grant. I didn't do that. It was a small pedal $20,000 grant that got me started. And I learned from all the people working with this population. What are the challenges they're facing? I worked with refugees and asked them, how does it feel to navigate this system? And then with this methodology, we map it, and we can see a visual model of how all the work activities by all the operators in the system, and we can start to see how do people move through this system. And then we understand where are the challenges in this system, and also where are the opportunities, where are we doing things well? And we dampen those challenges, and we enhance those opportunities, and we create recommendations. And we've done that, and now we're implementing a clinic, which is addressing some of those challenges and enhancing those opportunities so these individuals and their families can access care, and the people working with them can feel better about the care that they're delivering. So it's been a wonderful experience for me learning systems thinking, getting to research it, apply it, and actually see some changes. And it's not a solution that we've done. We're moving the needle in the right direction, and we're learning. And we've failed in a few ways, and we take that information and we keep going. So it's been a wonderful learning opportunity. I'm happy to be back here at UMB and to be able to have the opportunity to work and do this really meaningful work that I was uncomfortable doing before, and now I can contribute in a different way.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a really interesting story.
Yeah.
In the book, we actually we try to avoid the language of solutions, and we use phrases like contributing to shifting systems, which sounds more tentative and not as scintillating, but it's a more accurate description of the work that you do, I think.
Yeah, and moving the needle, it's not, like, we'll get there. We will, because we're willing to learn and understand how something functions. And we can't do that until we learn from everybody who is in this system, and we hear their feedback, and we get out of our own models that we're in. And I was a nurse practitioner, emergency nursing. Like, that's my mental model. That's where I live. But I didn't know what a social worker did very well. I didn't know what the pharmacist role was. I didn't know the family doctor. Like, you have to get that information. Go out there and get it, learn it, and that's where we start to make transformative changes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Love that. Jules, you work in this very, very important space of trying to understand the socially maladaptive effects of advanced technologies and how do we bend the arc of tech toward good. I'm sure you have some thoughts on AI. And what do we need to be paying attention to or to get on top of if we're to actually bend this arc towards good?
Oh man, that's a difficult question. I think it's about, well, as you said, I mean, thank you for the keynote. It was fantastic. And really just taking a step back. And before we even, I'd say the step before thinking about the problem we're trying to solve, like just recognizing the system that we're living in. And how is that impacting how we even see the world, how we are exposed to the problems, how we experience the problems. And my colleague Val we were discussing AI this morning and talking about the narrative of, the big tech, the messaging is that they're doing this for humanity and I don't want to other, and I know my language is doing that, but questioning who is being referred to when we're talking about the good of humanity. Who are people thinking about when we're thinking about the benefits of these technologies, and who's paying for that? And so I think it's about a real good hard look at ourselves and our places within the systems before we even think about the problems. And having some difficult questions. Again, we were having this conversation this morning. It's really, I've got a PhD in computer science, and I feel uncomfortable raising concerns about AI because the dominant narrative is hop on board or get left behind. Don't be naive. People didn't like, writing when that came along as a technology. And it's very, very easy to dismiss the folks that are critiquing the emerging technologies. Some of my peers, when I was doing my PhD, when the smartphones were coming out, I'm aging myself, and when social networks were emerging, there were red flags and people called it and they were ignored. And do we want to repeat? Do we want to keep repeating the same mistakes? So I think it's, start with where you're at and be honest and have some difficult conversations. As you said, this isn't binary. It's not good or bad. There's many, many shades in between, but we have to make space not just big tech to be at the table and not just bringing voices to the table, bringing people to the decision-making table and sharing ownership and sharing wealth, because that's how the system's going to change.
Fantastic. So it implicates, it's not just the development of AI itself and the system we may define around technology development, but there's all these other systems that intersect and impinge, including our own system inside our self, which is, thank you for reminding us that. Kush, you're an amazing educator. I've seen you in action. I've seen the work of your students. I've had the privilege of coaching some of them. What can you comment on bringing systems into the classroom, bringing systems thinking into the classroom? What does it mean for students? What kind of feedback have you gotten from them? How has it changed their trajectories or even their career choices?
Excellent question. Another complex one, but I'll take a step back and talk about the motivation for the course, and that might provide some context as to, how the students may have reacted or responded. But the motivation for the course stemmed from the fact that engineering curriculum fundamentally is about problem solving. And engineers, in fact, identify as problem solvers. And the challenge with engineers is they also don't recognize how much power they have in systems. Engineers have a lot of power. They can inflict a lot of change. And if we talk to engineers, and there's several fantastic studies that have been done, engineers believe that technology is like culturally agnostic. It has no influence on culture. And that belief system is in fact foundational to the engineering belief. And so the motivation for the course is I guess in my recognition, is that, working in industry for years, that's like engineering graduates have no idea how to understand problems. In fact, they don't understand problems. They are they expect to be thrown a problem and then work on a solution. The reality is, with our complex world, we should, as presented in the book, the 55 minutes, we should be spending a significant amount of time just trying to understand the problems. And any students who've taken my courses, whether it's in entrepreneurship or not, they ask a lot. They have to. I can see students smiling because there's lots of them in the room here. They have to write hypotheses for me, and I want to see your hypotheses, and I want you to write down what are the foundations of what you believe, so that you may understand the problem. And so, those students, getting back to the question, that take the course, most of them don't realize how important the problem actually is. And one of the privileges I think I've had in teaching this course is that the retention of the students who come back in subsequent years to be mentors and support the course is phenomenal. It's over 50% of the students say, I don't care where I am going to come back and help in any way I can, which is, to me, unbelievable. That they're willing to give back. And many of the students that I've had the privilege of working with even tell me that it's changed the way they view the world. And so whether engineering students, some of them you'd know, like Vincent Ramon, fundamentally is a systems thinker. He came to the Banff Systems Summit on his own dime because he wanted to be part of that. To Emily Paul, who's now pursuing a law degree at University of Ottawa and wants to use a systems perspective of Indigenous law. So the short answer is, yes, I have seen change, and it's very individualistic, but perhaps it's been that they felt like they've been empowered, that they understand the importance of the problem.
Well, your course is coded as engineering, but the students I've talked to, they come from sociology or humanities, or it's a really interesting. It's attracting students from all over the place, and I share this observation that you have that students don't see the world in the same way. You can really tell when they talk about consuming news or interpreting news stories. The feedback that we've consistently received is, once you learn systems thinking, you do not see the news the same way ever again. You're asking, what's the context here? I need more of a backstory. I need more of a. There's only so much journalists can do in the space of a 2-minute news segment, but they're asking for maps. Show us the maps. Show us what are the underlying mentalities or paradigms that people and the assumptions that people hold. So really, really cool to see that unfold in students, and thank you for doing that. Igor, where's Igor?
Here.
Hi, how much time do we have?
Still 50 minutes.
50? Oh, great. Okay. So, Jules, you're working on, I think, in many ways, the most important challenge of our time.
No pressure.
In a context where we hear some of these oligarchs talking about the future in pretty ominous terms, and they do it it's the weirdest thing, right? To hear Elon Musk, for example, say, there's about a 20% chance the robots will kill us all. Would you get on a plane if the CEO of Boeing said the same thing? So it's very bizarre. And a lot of their language veers towards frankly, the totalitarian. what gives you hope or energy in this, in the context of that? Like, what do we need to get right, and what gives you hope or energy?
Well, I lived in a trough of despair for many years. But I recently, I think you look, for those of us who are in the Western capitalist kind of paradigm, you look outside of that. And you, sorry, I won't say you. I look outside of that. And I look for the folks who haven't been centered in traditional conversations around AI and the visions of the future. And there is so much hope, so much potential. I recently read a book. So I'm a voracious reader. I'm a giant nerd. That's how I accidentally ended up with a PhD, you know. Yes. And I kind of want to take Kush's course. So if you haven't enrolled, you should enroll. Everybody should enroll. So I recently read, I kind of gave up and I opted out of the tech conversation for the longest time because I was like, you know what, no point. Yeah. And I bought into that message that it's going to happen anyway, so don't bother. And then I recently read a book called Imagination and Manifesto by Ruha Benjamin. She's an American scholar. And she said, imagination is controlled by those who have material wealth. And who has the right to define the future is controlled by those who have the wealth. And it's intentional that folks who question it, try and nudge it in a different direction, are silenced. Because if you silence imagination, you silence collective action. And so I kind of read that book, and I encourage you all to go read it too, and everything by her. Go and find the positive deviants who are curious technology skeptics, because they will bend the arc. And find your people and have conversations about alternatives. Don't buy into this falsity that it's inevitable. It's not inevitable. We all do have power. And change comes from giving yourself permission to imagine alternatives first. So I get a lot of inspiration from Indigenous scholars, people of color, people from the Global South, who are able to look in at the system and paint much more hopeful pictures of alternative futures.
Wonderful, thank you. Alexis, in schools where they teach health vocations, so medical schools and health policy schools and so on, are you seeing much of a shift in the embrace of systems thinking as part of those learning ecologies? Because it strikes me that like more than anywhere else, or the most obvious place where those kinds of courses that you would teach, Kush, would fall into as health schools. Do you see much change there? And tell us a little bit about any highlights or any kind of any systems barriers, why it's not more prominent than it ought to be.
That's a great question. In terms of like globally, like there's a Johns Hopkins School of Health course on systems thinking. It's available online. It's accessible. It's achievable. It's a great intro. But when we think about the health schools specifically in Canada, there's not a lot of people teaching systems thinking. I learned from my my supervisor, who was not a health professional. He was Arctic ship engineer. He used the methodology that I'm using in healthcare to get ships through ice dams. That's who I learned systems thinking from. And it wasn't in a course, it was in a seminar that we would meet regularly, and we'd go over the literature and he'd challenge me. And I went to Queen's and did human factors and ergonomics, which is a type of systems thinking where we think about how people work with the environment and technology and how their work is achieved. So no, there's not a lot out there in terms of systems thinking specific to health professions. And Kush actually kind of inspired me. was able to attend some of the introductory lectures that he provided and an overview of his course. And I said to myself, I'm making a systems thinking and health course. And and it was very liberating because he had said, I just decided I'm going to do this and I'm going to gather people around. And I hope the university approves it, but I built it. And built it with my research colleague, Dr. Vahid Salehi. He's a postdoctoral fellow. He's working here with me at UNB. We met as PhD students at Memorial. He came here to UNB recently as a postdoctoral fellow with an award, the Purdy Crawford Jaroslawski Postdoctoral Fellowship Award. So we're now working together. He's an engineer. I'm a nursing professional. And we're putting together this systems thinking and healthcare course.
Wonderful.
And it's done. Approve it. That's what we want. I'm not waiting for permission. So I've learned that in systems thinking. Go for it. Learn, understand it, get it all together, and then
That's really
put
cool.
it forward. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
Kush, I mean, thinking about how you teach systems thinking in an engineering context, we talk a lot about, when I say we, I actually don't mean me, I mean in the literature, it talks about socio-technical systems. So some of the academics who like think and breathe systems use this term. And my understanding of it is the rationale is like no social system is purely human. There's always technology involved, and no technical system is purely technological. It's always humans involved. And so, but we have very different kinds of systems and different conceptions of systems. There's like more mechanical and deterministic, and there's like humans that are really, really messy and, and unpredictable and so on. How do you incorporate both into learning? And is there how do you fit those two kinds of approaching systems together?
So that's a really good question. I mean, the course is titled Introduction to Systems Thinking. So, and it's thoughtfully defined that because really the students, who are taking this course, for the most part, touching this topic for the first time. Like many of them never have really either thought in systems or have recognized that there's an entire field that's based on systems. It comes down to humility, I think, and the course is not based around, I would say, an engineering-centric curriculum. It's based around frameworks which are, let's say, discipline agnostic. And we try to create an environment which is inviting for students of different disciplines. That was one of the hardest things I found, in building the course was not the topic, not the content. It was actually building bridges between departments to say, because a lot of them were like, why is this engineer, this BlackBerry Waterloo guy, come doing this, right? And I thought that was kind of I was like, I'm not sure what I did, but I realized that it's probably the history that has created this environment of distrust. And so it's inviting. And so I'm actually proud to say that the Department of Sociology has added this course as one of their electives now, and criminology. So and I'm hoping that others here, if they're willing to add, if the leadership side is willing to add it as a elective as well, we welcome. Okay. So in having that environment where everybody feels like their voice matters and they're valued equally, we can start having conversations about both the technological side and the social side. And so that's why the course thrives, not because I teach content, it's because the people in the course come with different knowledge, experience, frames, and they clash and they argue. And that's what creates the richness. And in fact, what I say every year in the course is that, I might be teaching you methods, but I'm learning from how you work together and what you produce. It's an opportunity for me to learn as well. So the short answer is that we create a space where the students can have those conversations. There are few frameworks I use, like I use some of the PESTEL model, where students have to ask really good questions, like beautiful questions in domains that include, political, environmental, social, technological, economic, and legal. So they're required. It doesn't matter what your background, you have to answer. If you don't, I give a big X, right? And everybody knows my mark, by the way. Anybody in my courses will know. If you don't do it, you don't get the marks. And so as a result of pushing them into these domains, and in teams where everybody has different perspectives, they have to interact. And in fact, absolutely amazing emergent work has come out from the students. It's not my work, it's the students. And it's hard to say that like there's any one particular thing that enables it. I think it's you just creating an environment where the students can thrive and you support them to thrive. And that's probably the single biggest thing.
So we only have a couple of minutes remaining. Maybe I'll ask each of you if, and as pithily as you can do it, if there's anything that you were kind of like, I was really hoping that we would talk about X and raise this as a topic, and it didn't come up in this panel. But if there's anything you want to leave us with that you haven't had a chance yet to surface, what would that be? So maybe one thing from each of you. So maybe Alexis, we could start with you.
Are you glad I'm going first? The questions so far have been excellent. And in terms of something I hope to talk about today, I just hope to reach the audience in terms of understanding systems thinking, having more of a discussion about it with people who do systems thinking from different disciplines and domains, is that you don't have to be a computer scientist or an engineer or an entrepreneur. You can be a sociologist or a healthcare professional and think in systems. And it was completely novel to me at the time. But as soon as I started to grasp the concept of systems thinking, my understanding of the healthcare system just expanded. And I now look at problems where I used to think, oh, I know what to do. No. I gotta, just like you were talking about, I'm 55 minutes, and if I have 5 minutes, I'm gonna think about the problem more now. And then I'm not looking for solutions, I'm looking for who around me can give me more information. How can I understand the structure? How can I understand the patterns? How can I understand what people think about this? And then how can we address the challenges? So if you think it's not for you, you're wrong. It is. Any domain that you're in, you can do this work. So I hope that inspires some people to take this on and get an interest in systems thinking.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Jules.
Yeah, I've got like 500 things going on in my brain at the same time. I think, yes, everything you said, and yeah, thank you for the great discussion. I think, yeah, to echo this, we're often taught that, yeah, experts have the answers, and we are living in horrendous times, and, in some fields, exciting times. But I think some of the real possibility here is because we can see how messed up a lot of things are, and that should bring us together. But there's no one discipline, there's no one perspective that can get us out of this, and we need to come together across disciplines, across ethnicities, across backgrounds, and that's what events like this do, and Kush's course, and hopefully this can continue. But everybody belongs because we are all part of the system. And we do have power, some more than others, and the ones that have the power should think about giving it up. So, yeah, we all belong in this, and it is accessible to everyone because we are part of it.
Wonderful, thank you. Kush.
So I'll concur that it's been a fantastic discussion, and I really appreciate being able to have it. One thing that I guess we didn't really elaborate or discuss was that ultimately, even just thinking in systems and understanding systems will take us so far in terms of understanding, but really what systems needs to be connected to is leadership. And that leadership and having leadership based on systems are the two things that can really lead to innovation. And so recognizing that that leader, like I maybe I can speak from my personal experience. I mean, I went to school, I went to the right schools, and I got the right jobs, and I did really well. And when I started working, and I could build things, I could do things, but the thing that really changed my life was having the privilege of being mentored by exceptional leaders. So I worked at companies where people saw that I had potential and they supported me, and that's what sort of the mentorship enabled me to develop as an individual and as a system engineer at the time. And so it's that recognition that leadership can change. And I think that's one of the things that the J. Herbert Smith Center does, is that we are here to help you develop as leaders, and what the School of Leadership Studies is now, focusing on as well. So just recognizing that there are two sort of steps. That development of that system skill paired with leadership is a recipe for amazing things. So
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, leadership, agency, and the importance of this to building a healthy world. So thank you all for being part of this discussion. Again, the book is available on the table in the lobby, so grab one, or visit 55minutes.com to get your free PDF and share it with the world. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very testing. Thank you very much, James, Ellie, Jules, Kush. Amazing conversation. Hopefully it was inspiring, so more people are gonna get into this topic. We do have a break now, so it's gonna be a 20-some minute break. We're gonna be back here at 3 p.m. Okay, so there's coffee outside in the lobby, and books are on the table on that way. So grab your book. We'll be back here 3 p.m. Thank you. Good, how are you? With me? Okay, I'm gonna share with the team there. Yep, thank you. Do you have any videos?
All right. Wasn't that a fantastic panel conversation? Incredible. More people asking how can we start applying system thinking to their environment. And some people suggested me helping. I think there are better people like Kush and Jules and Alex that we should be more involved. But I'm always I can always sort of help bring in good people. That's the only thing I can be good at doing, right? Being very honest. Look, the next speaker is an extremely special person because the center and him and the family have been deeply connected together. The family is so community-minded, so regionally minded, always want to give back to the community, always want the best thing for our society. What was particularly special this year is that he was recognized as the excellence in teaching in the Technology Management Entrepreneurship Program. Why it is special, again, is that a couple of years back, his father received a similar recognition and award, and all happened in this particular room. And his dad is no longer with us, and our relationship and partnership has continued. And in his in the dad's name, Merv Sim's name, they started a scholarship connected to our program. Really humbled to welcome Matt Sims.
All right, they are going to try and keep me in this little box while we do this. That's going to be very difficult. I may grab that mic in a second. Folks, I think it's going to come up here as I flip. Oh, we're just waiting for the slide deck to come up. There we go. Okay. So, folks, oftentimes I start introductions by saying I'm a recovering academic. That's not quite recovered. So I really enjoyed this morning's talk and the panel. And then I get the good fortune of helping small businesses and large organizations contend with the mess we've unleashed on them in the last 2.5 years. And really, there is an enormous amount of chaos right now. And there is no field that isn't going to be severely disrupted by what we've unleashed. There's no other way to say it. Who here uses AI daily? Okay. Who is scared by how much they use it right now? Yeah. Okay, good. There's some honesty. Okay, folks, before I jump in, what's AI stand for? I set you up. I'll do that a few more times here today. Maybe. Or does it stand for alien intelligence? Right? And I think our godfather, grandfather, Dr. Hinton, who left Google to warn us of what we've unleashed on the world here. And if you haven't taken in Yuval Harari's book, Nexus, as a recovering academic, as a former historian, we used to crucify these books, but for all the wrong reasons. It's a very nice longitudinal survey and basically said, look, if unleashing loads of information on society made it better, why did the printing press unleash 200 years of witch hunts? It's just to say that what could be good doesn't necessarily become good. But here's what I will say. My hope is that the good actors grab a hold of the potential of AI and run with it faster than the bad actors. That's my hope. And unfortunately, you don't have an option to opt out, really. I mean, we can maybe decide to reinvent society in some way, shape, or form. That's a conversation that I'd love to have. The one we're in, I don't think we can opt out. Or you know, when you think about it, and I wanted to put this podcast up here because this talk forced me to go, what does systems thinking and AI really mean? What's it really mean? And as the grandson or the great-grandson of a subsistence farmer, the grandson of a roofer, first-generation entrepreneur, and the son of a graduate of the chemical engineering department, where my brother calls me the accident. My dad was in third year when I was born. He's right. I spent time in the locker. So I was beta test subject number 1 for a chemical engineer who understood how an entrepreneur struggled to scale. So you want to talk about systems thinking. I was beta test subject number 1 for systems thinking. Exponential View is an unbelievable podcast that is 15 to 30 minutes long. It looks at all of these topics from a deep standpoint. And there are pessimistic and optimistic ways to look at this. Kevin Kelly and Azim just got through a very optimistic view of it, which leads me to the Tech Bro version of AI, and they'll call it amplified intelligence. Now, on the left, and I'm kind of scared because this is streaming, but that's Mark Andreessen. Okay, his politics are slightly right of Attila the Hun. He does not really believe in or care for regulation. And of course, that is the issue with Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley has decided, and they've decided for quite some time, whether it's social media, whether it's Uber and Airbnb, that they are going to go faster than regulation and fight regulation with lawyers. That's how they're going to play. They do not care about geographic boundaries. And the only thing really saving us right now, when you think from an ecosystem standpoint in AI, is we have 5 gorillas letting it out for free, basically, so that they can figure out who can win out of this. But kid you not, if one of them could have a monopoly on this, we'd end up with another Apple ecosystem. Do we want that? Do we not want that? Okay, and I'm putting these big picture conversations in front of leaders all over the place because I'm saying, like, look, you got to contend with this. And on the other side's Reid Hoffman. Anybody familiar with Reid Hoffman? The largest Democratic donor, founder of LinkedIn, also part of the PayPal mafia. And I think he gives you an example of Silicon Valley that also believes it's amplified intelligence, but in a more measured way. And so those links are down there. Look, you can get my email address. The info at Simplicity goes there. I'm happy to send this deck out. It'll be at the end. There's lots of links in here because I think you have to contend with these bigger picture discussions and conversations to decide how you're going to interact in this system that you're in. But make no mistake, the AI layoffs have begun, and you can mask it in any way, shape, or form that you want. They're here. They're here. And I can tell you that as a small company, okay, Simplicity Designs, very small company, less than 30 employees, we require 50% of the support staff we used to need 2.5 years ago, and we have higher quality product coming out with people working less hours. And I'm just a tiny little company, okay? So the layoffs have begun. The CEO warmly said, do 30% more or get out. Notice he didn't say work 30% harder. He didn't say that. And in fact, much of this, is it going to lead to the 4-day work week, the 3-day work week, the time where we have more leisure time? There's big societal questions around this. Where's universal basic income in this? Do we even want to play this capitalist democratic game that we're into? Okay, those questions are coming, and you have to live within that ecosystem or opt out. You can go farm, or you can go somewhere else. It is your choice to play in it, but just understand that you're in it or you're not in it. There's a Stanford study that just came out. The reality is this is hitting the 22 to 25-year-olds harder than any other segment of the population. They've normalized for every possible other reason. The reality is that we are down 13% in hiring, and honestly, I understand why. If you can amplify a mid-tier, mid-career employee with AI, you don't need to hire another one. Okay, so these are very real consequences of what are going on the ground. Okay, and I think you need, at least I hope that everybody in this room, and look, keeping up with it is exhausting. It's like a full-time job. It's changing every week. Stuff's coming out. What do you trust? What do you not trust? You got to find your trusted voices and sources in this, but it's here. Eric Schmidt says we're going to see 30% productivity improvements year over year. That's insane. Economists do not have models for that. It breaks every model that you can imagine. Eric Schmidt is prone to hyperbole. He also was the CEO of Google when it became enormous. So, you know, and look, you can't put genie back in the bottle. I actually asked AI to create me an image that says you can't put AI back in the bottle, and it refused to do so. So, hey, just in case you didn't hear that, that's terrifying. It refused to create an image for me that suggested any way AI was negative. So I still use my P's and Q's with AI just in case our AI overlords come and take over. Maybe they'll spare me for a bit. Look, this is the paradox of mass intelligence, and I'm going to read this, because Ethan Mollick, I think, is one of the most important voices on AI integration, actual AI for use. So here we are. Powerful AI is cheap enough to give away, easy enough that you don't need a manual, capable enough to outperform humans at a range of intellectual tasks. A flood of opportunity and problems are about to show up in classrooms, courtrooms, and boardrooms around the world. The mass intelligence era is what happens when you give 1 billion people access to an unprecedented set of tools and see what they do with it. We're about to find out what that is like. Everybody looks really excited now. It's good. Dhirendra didn't bring me in here for a pep talk, sorry. So, look, who am I to be talking about this? It's a fair question. As Dhirendra talked about, and I said a little bit in my intro, I got to sit in rooms I didn't belong in far younger than I should have been there. I understand my position of privilege. I understand my responsibility of privilege. I got to start on the 99-yard line, bottom line. And look, did I get to start there because my family was always there? No, I told you, subsistence farming, roofing. I spent my 19 and 20 summers hammering shingles. And then my dad is the first to graduate from university, and me is the second. And I got the good fortune of spending 10 years in academia. My family thought I was slow at learning. I was collecting certificates. Then I got to go sit in boardrooms where decisions were made beside him. And you get to see how leaders make decisions. And the reality is strategy is not about getting it right. It's about being less wrong faster. That's it. Okay? And you have to make decisions with not enough information. And most of the time you don't make right decisions. You make the decision and then you make that decision right. There are lots of ways to get to 9. And I have sat in these rooms. I studied these rooms before as historians, Cuban Missile Crisis, etc. There's fun stories there. And then I get sit in the room and look, nobody has a clue. They're doing what they can with what they know to the best of their ability. Okay? And then I got the honor of working with Dhirendra. Yes, I had AI create a version of AI me, but because I was told that I was a variation of a cyborg. And that may be true. I do test high on the logic side, but I also know that we're all illogical. If you study behavioral economics, you understand that. Anybody who thinks they're a rational human, and most engineers do, I'm sorry, you're not. If you think you are, study Kahneman. He won a Nobel Prize for proving we're all insane. So the reason why I put that image up there, though, is that this is an uncomfortable moment in human history. We are all cyborgs. We have been for quite some time. My guess is you have a little rectangle thing in your pocket that is just, you just want to grab it right now because there might be something from don'tshophere.com and a notification that's grabbing your attention. We all have that. You have wheels that you got here on today. I don't know about the rest of you, but actually, funny story. Google Maps sent me on a road here today, and I followed it in spite of the fact that it looked like a cow pasture, and it turned into one when I was coming from Fox Harbor here this morning. So that took me an extra 10 minutes. I will follow Google Maps just a little bit too far. Not quite to the water, but I found today I will follow it to the cow pasture. To which part are we, what are we going to do with that? Because here's the thing. Increasingly, we're relying on things outside of us to make decisions. This is the real danger of AI. And when I'm talking about AI integration, there are two major issues that I'm running into. I'm running into cognitive offloading It's an academic audience, so I think I can say that here. But what that really means is you give responsibility to the tool to be right, because your brain is inherently lazy. It wants to conserve energy. So cognitive offloading happens, and then what happens when I cognitively offload for too long, I end up with muscle atrophy. Don't use the brain, brain doesn't work. Drive into a cow pasture. Okay, these are things that happen. So folks, when it comes to AI, it's just the most recent evolution in how we're going to lead and enable leading. I put this up here because people in my field have called the same thing different things for a long period of time. But the other reason why I put this up here is if you look at every iteration, it's just a new iteration of systems thinking. You got the artisan with specialized skills. You got Adam Smith that said, hey, let's not put it all in one person. You got Benjamin Franklin that said, hey, let's divide things up and make sure that we have the right people doing the right tasks on the right to-do list. And then you really had a revolution with Frederick Taylor, where he started timing and motion. You got Henry Ford, who took Frederick Taylor's beautiful stuff and turned it into an assembly line. Okay, and then you've got Deming, who said, wait a minute, these aren't just machines, these are people, and looked at it from a systems thinking with people in mind. And I could go through each one of these, their iterations on system thinking, on leadership, etc. And now we're at the frontier of what they're calling unmetered intelligence or knowledge on tap. And this is very uncomfortable for technicians. And by the way, 70% or so of the world are technicians if you look at the data. They are they're almost trapped by their own skills. What I mean by a technician is that you value the knowledge you have to create value. And so when that knowledge no longer has value, what do humans feel? Threat. Right away. My grandfather was a roofer, started a roofing company, right? And I work with business owners every day that are technicians who have started a technical company. And what do you think, when AI knows all the answers, if you can frame it, what does that do to your value? So we get some really human questions that we've got to ask about this before we can actually use it for anything. Buckminster Fuller might have been one of the best systems thinker. He passed away in 1983. He's the one that Steve Jobs barely got a meeting with, wanted to badly because of his ability to think about designs. He basically said, look, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And I think for this room, we've never been at a more important point. We are reinventing the model. We are disrupting everything we know about value creation right now. I don't say that lightly. Okay. When I move from that to go, okay, how do we take all of that and create value? Because again, I was the grandson of a roofer. If it couldn't create economic value and forward mobility, my grandfather wanted nothing to do with it. He didn't understand what it did. Okay, so how do we actually move from the theoretical, this idea of systems thinking and 14-syllable words, and how do we put that in the hands of people where they can do good things with it? So that's the next part of this, okay? And you go, okay, every organization, every business, every organization that exists to create value, it has three components. It has a purpose for why it exists. It has a core set of processes that lots of things that come together to create that value, and we have people who show up every day executing processes to deliver on that value. Purpose, process, people. See, my dad is a chemical engineer, had to be a systems thinker. He had no choice, because with every other form of engineering, you can actually see the thing being built. You can be a cause and effect thinker. Chemical engineer can't actually witness two chemicals coming together to create a reaction because they will die. So they have to be able to see things in the abstract. And that's why chemical engineers, if you look around the world, you'll see that a lot of chemical engineers actually lead companies because they can think in the abstract. What are systems? Systems are abstract that you can actually see. Purpose, process, people. Now, how does that translate into a management system? Purpose, process, people. Then we go to work every day in the organization using a process we have. That process might be in your head, or it might be written down. It might be written down and not used, but there's a process for how you do stuff. Then great organizations get together every once in a while and go, hey, you know that thing that we're doing? It's not really doing what we want it to do. We need it to do more. So then they work on the organization. They change form, fit, or function of the process so that it goes faster, better, with less resources. That is what is responsible for the standard of living that we all have here today. like it or not. And we have a lot of professors that are Gucci Marxists. And what I mean by that is they drive nice cars and live in nice houses and then talk about the system that built that and go, should we still live in that system? Those are uncomfortable conversations. Those are really uncomfortable conversations because I think we got to challenge systems. We got to distribute wealth. I think we're in a pile of shit right now. You read Thomas Piketty's book on capital, his treatise on capital, you see that anytime you get the congealment of wealth at the top and you have a bottom bunch of billion people who have no access to it, guess what you get? Revolution. You get violence. You get violence because nobody's got a chance. So what we are currently right now doing, unfortunately, in society is building a system that is eroding a middle class. And you've got a whole bunch of small business owners that are trying to figure out how the hell to make ends meet in that ecosystem. 87% of small business owners make less than $79,000 a year. They aren't making much money. Most businesses are two bad decisions from bankruptcy. That's the way it works. I mean, when you look at a business owner and you're wondering why they aren't given a whole bunch of money back, it's because they don't have it. You know, I've been under the hood of about 700 businesses in the last 13 years, and every business I've been under the hood is very, very similar. It is held together with duct tape and good people and maybe two processes, right? So these are the systems that we try to bring a management system to. Now, my dad's career involved him working for Procter & Gamble. He went out and worked in Procter & Gamble. And Procter & Gamble at the time was reinventing how they created value. It was the early 80s. There's some people in here who have no hair or gray hair and remember mortgage rates in the early 80s. Any idea? I'm looking at the front row here. What was the mortgage rate in 1980? 21%. My dad's was 21.5% on his house mortgage, okay? We were facing an economic crisis that you wouldn't believe, and North America was trying to reinvent itself so it can compete with the Japanese products. Procter & Gamble put 2 mills, one in Grand Prairie, Alberta. Now, things happen by chance. My dad, the son of an entrepreneur, graduate with a chemical engineer, ends up in Grand Prairie, Alberta, working for Procter & Gamble as they're reinventing the way they do work and introducing management systems. Now, my dad then came back and brought modern management systems to JDI, first with 1 mill, then 7 mills, then all 62 of the businesses. And at the other time, after he got through all the businesses, he said, Matt, will you come home from your PhD and let's start something and let's give back. Let's take this knowledge and democratize it. Let's galvanize it. Let's put it in the hands of people who can do something with it. So it shouldn't be surprising to you, this study, and I think a lot of people saw this study and said, thank God AI sucks. Okay, folks, do you know what the second Friday of January is called? It's called Quitter's Day. Any idea why? New Year's resolutions fall off a cliff. And that's statistically real. Strava is an app. Who is on Strava in here? Okay, 4 or 5 people. If you know that Strava, it collects all your runs and your bike rides and your swims. And so Strava looked at 109 million people on their app, and the second Friday of January consistently is when motivation meets the systems they have in place. James Clear was mentioned earlier. We don't rise to the level of our ambitions, we fall to the level of our systems. Guys, the fact that we have a 95% failure rate in AI integration should not be a surprise. Out of the original Fortune 500, a list put together in 1955, the top 500 companies in the world, less than 44 of them remain. Do you think the rest of them said, I can't wait to go to work late, do a shitty job, leave early, and brag about how we're exiting the Fortune 500? It's not the way it works. But here's the reality. If you want to talk about systems thinking, companies, okay, you're this organism, and you live in a world that is changing constantly, okay? Nobody asked the orange man to do what he's doing, but holy geez, look where we are. And after I've said that, and it's videoed, I can't go to the States anymore. Okay, but that's fine. I don't want to go, so that's okay. So, in the world is changing all the time. The market, what the customer values. 5 of those original Fortune 500 companies sold cigarettes. What the market values changes. And our ability to deliver that value changes constantly. AI integration, automation, technology, all kinds of stuff. So you are living in that ecosystem. It's like the ultimate Darwinian experience. Okay? And for anybody who's read Origin of Species, you'll know that there's a famous line in there. Even if you haven't read it, you probably know what it is, right? Survival of the fittest. The issue is that people misunderstood, especially some fascist regimes, what fittest means. Fittest does not mean the biggest biceps. It does not mean how tall you are or how strong you are. If that was the case, the dinosaurs would still be here. Okay? What fittest actually means is survival of the most adaptable. So we live in this ecosystem. We got to understand that system that we're living in. And every domain, every vertical lives within a system that is constantly changing in a chaotic way. If you're going to do good strategy, if you're going to do good change, you understand how to see that system and be a fast follower to value creation. A fast follower. If you're too far out ahead, you'll actually kill the company too, because the customer doesn't know what you're delivering to them. And if you're too far behind, somebody's already grabbed market share. And sometimes when you see a system, these massive changes are not really massive at all. They're actually quite small. We worked with the Department of Education with a school that is 45 minutes north of Moncton. Does anybody know what's 45 minutes north of Moncton? Nothing. There's trees and a couple of people. Rural community. Very rural community. Okay? We've got Anglophones, Francophones, we got indigenous culture, we have very low economic capability. You got all the disasters in an area where you would say you can't do anything, go somewhere else. Number 37 out of 37. Okay, we went there in terms of literacy. We went to say, okay, let's improve literacy. Because do you know that until grade 2, you learn to read, and then for the rest of your life, you read to learn. You can correlate prison cells with grade 2 literacy rates. You can correlate socioeconomic return with grade 2 literacy rates. If you don't get them there, it's over. Okay? Talk about systems. Went there with the teachers. So we said, okay, how do we improve literacy? And the reason I'm bringing this up is that this is a process that lives in a system. And what you do is you work with the people on the ground who are creating the value to understand how are they creating the value today. You heard Dr. McGill talk about that. How are we creating the value today? Let's map it and see it. How do we want to create the value tomorrow? And let's go to do that. Now, in moving from today to tomorrow, the changes are so insane that you could never guess them. In my 13 years of doing organizational change, of helping organizations overcome this 95% failure rate, it's pretty easy to find the business problem. It's almost impossible without the people doing the job and mapping it and seeing it to find the actual discrete things in the process that you need to change to create more value. Back to this literacy. Look, if you want people to get better at reading, what do they have to do more of? Thank you. Not a trick question. They got to read more. Okay, when you have math, science, and reading, and you get a teacher and they run out of time, what do you think the first thing they cut out of the curriculum? Reading, because science and math visually builds on itself, but reading is the silent compounding reality in there. So we said, well, why did we stop reading to them? And when we unpacked it and asked the teachers, look, we got one of the best curriculums. Teachers don't teach grade 2 for summers off, I can assure you. Those are grade 2 class. They teach it because they love kids, okay? So then we get in, unpack back. And you know what the two massive changes to that system were? First thing is the classroom was 397 steps from the front door. Now, grade 2 students live in Canada, and they waddle into that classroom for 80% of the time they're in school with their snowsuit on, and we lost 5 minutes. Okay, so let's move the classroom closer. The second one is, have you ever noticed in a modern school that everybody needs to know that little Jimmy has to go to the principal's office? Come over the loudspeaker like 20 times a day. And do you know that a 2-minute interruption is the same thing as a 28-minute cognitive interruption? It pulls you out of deep work. So if you're reading and Jimmy has to go to the office, so they got agreement at 2 times during the day that they would not interrupt for 90 minutes. They would not interrupt at all over the loudspeaker unless there was a literal fire. Okay. Those were the two changes, folks, to that system. They went from number 37 to number 1 in literacy rates in Le District Scolaire Francophone Sud and stayed there for 2 years on those two changes. So often system changes are really small with huge asymmetrical impact if you can actually get to the process level. And now we're seeing that compound in a significant way when you put AI integration in there. Folks, you saw the 95%. What percent of change do you think fails? You're pretty close with 90. Here's the sad reality. Milligan study of 10,000 organizations in North America. 70% of attempted changes actually made the area worse. because you got everybody excited about the change. You got it all unpacked, and then you did nothing with it. Made it worse. 20% gave them some of it, and a little under 10% actually gave them the time, quality, and cost. Look, just like our New Year's resolutions, we suck at change. We love routine. We take comfort in routine. The AI integration that you're seeing and the choppiness of it is a human change management issue. It is not a technology issue. Okay, number one. Okay, now I'm going to speed through these because I know I don't have much more time. I swore I wasn't going to say how much time do I have, but Igor, how much time do I have?
Let's say 6 minutes.
Perfect, 6 minutes. We'll go really fast. Here's the reality. This is a system that an organization lives within. What outcome do you want to get? What processes deliver that organizational outcome? What activity drivers lead to the process outcomes that lead to the organizational outcome? Now, how do I amplify the activity drivers with AI? You can't benefit from AI right now today unless you have a couple $2 billion or you know how to fractionally integrate. Those are your two options, okay? And what we're teaching everybody, what we're working with everybody on is fractional integration. We've been doing it since January of 2023. The first time I typed something into ChatGPT, I went, oh shit. You can't do strategy and execution without realizing the world had just been put on its side, okay? And it's going to be very chaotic. Gil Elad, other way around, Elad Gil, the most impressive investor in Silicon Valley that you've never heard of. He's invested in 40 unicorns. Here's what he said. He said the next 2 years are going to be the most economically disruptive in human history because AI is right at the point where it can do some serious lifting and nobody's really done anything with it yet. So now we're going to see some real winners and some real losers in the next bit. And with the 6 minutes I have left, I'm going to leave you with 3 first principles, and I'm going to rip through in a minute lots of processes and how we amplified it. But here's the first principles that I hope you take away when it comes to AI right now. Please use AI as a co-pilot. This is not Jesus take the wheel. The minute AI is in the driver's seat, you should be, well, just get out of the car. It is not ready for the wheel. Okay, it's not ready. And the worst part is the further you get away from your locus of experience or your zone of genius, the less you know that it's just taken the wheel. Okay, the problem with AI is not that it's wrong, it's that it's so confident when it's wrong that it tricks you. That's the major problem. Okay, so AI is a co-pilot. Okay, the value you add is changing. It's changing dramatically. Okay, so what you do every day, what you know, is part of the value. It's not the full value now. It almost has no value, but here's what does have value. Framing it, and then audit, edit, and integrate on the other side. I use the 10-80-10 rule to describe this. Let AI do the heavy lift of knowledge, but my God, take the part up front. Call it prompting, call it context engineering, whatever you want. And actually with ChatGPT 5, prompting became more important than the previous versions. Okay, and please, please, please use the thinking version. Please, don't let it decide for you how much it wants to think. And then on the other side, how are you creating the audit, edit, integrate? How are you taking responsibility for how it creates value? Do not be the lawyer that submits cases to the Supreme Court that aren't real. Not a good look. Not a good look. That's news today. Deloitte just got absolutely nailed and had to hand a whole bunch of money back to the Australian government because basically a 5-year-old with AI wrote the report for them. I'm sorry for the 5-year-old. Okay. Look, and the last first principle that I want to leave you with, because I want to leave you with some real stuff that you can go do. This is not doom and gloom, okay? Like Shakespeare said this a long time ago. Nothing in this world is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Okay? It is up to everyone in this audience to commandeer AI in the way that hopefully the good actors can outpace the bad actors. The prompting framework that I've had success with, that I think is really important, is this one. Give it a roll, tell it who it is, because it has the world's information in there, quote unquote, the world's. But have you read the comment section on a CBC article recently? Is that the information you want coming into your answer? No, it really isn't. So give it a roll, okay? The next thing is give it the input. Give it all the right details. Do not give it part of the details and hope it fills in the story. Give it all the details you want. Give it the context, set the tone and the purpose. What kind of outcome do you want from this? Give it the guardrails. What are the constraints? Don't look here, don't look there, right? And then, for God's sakes, it is not an advanced search. It isn't. It's not Google. It is a conversational tool to get to a better outcome if you want. And I know I'm getting practical and tactical in an academic setting. I get that. But for me, if we can translate these first principles to value creation for better healthcare, value creation for better education. Look, we aren't creating Einsteins anymore because we aren't able to do one-on-one tutoring because we can't afford it. And teachers are overwhelmed. They're teaching to the middle. They can't deal with the extremes. We've known since I was a teacher that individual education plans are the secret to unlocking academic potential, unlocking knowledge. We have not had the resources. We couldn't find a way to galvanize the resources. Guys, with Synthesis.ai or Khan Academy and Khanmigo, one-on-one is right there. It can be had now. My 7-year-old daughter did Synthesis.ai this summer. It's 20 minutes of gamified math. I got a report every day. She loved it, had a lot of fun. I got a report every day on what she was struggling with, fractions, whatever it happened to be. And then we play around with that P's at night. It was nothing, but what I was trying to do is make sure she didn't get that 40% or 30% regression in the summer that most students get while they're out playing and not doing any of that compounding work on literature, etc. The rest of this deck just has a bunch of processes. I'm going to go through these processes, but I want to leave you with one thing. I'm walking through them. You'll have the deck, the sales process, the marketing process, how you can actually get prepared for sales meetings. Look, everything's got flow in here. How do you actually do scheduling better with it? Conversations 8 times faster. I mean, look, I carry around this Plod.ai. Yes, it's SOC 2 compliant. You can't get in there, cybersecurity, all that kind of fun stuff. But I talk to my stuff. I've helped homeowners or home builders avoid the dreaded paperwork that they all hate. You can do it in 2 seconds. I do it on my runs. Look, you can get it in HR. It's unbelievable for workforce planning. It's unbelievable for onboarding. It's absolutely unbelievable for growth and development. Getting a coach just like my daughter, right? You can do it in every part of HR. In leadership, you can have Marshall Goldsmith. You can't afford Marshall Goldsmith. I can't afford Marshall Goldsmith. He's the #1 coach in the world. His give back to the world is marshallgoldsmith.ai. I don't have any crucial conversations without playing out scenarios with him. Look, it's beautiful in that way. And the last one that I'll leave you with is this. My daughter I delivered a keynote to Hockey Canada in 2018 and said my daughter would never play the game. Okay, Hockey Canada's had its share of bumps. My daughter decided at 5 years old she wanted to skate. Just to let you know. Like, look, at my house, I have 49% of the decision-making shares. Okay. My partner played university basketball. I was fairly certain with my 2 daughters, I would be in a warm gym at a reasonable time, and I was very happy about that. She started skating. And then she went from skating to, I want to play hockey. And after 6 sessions of first shift, which by the way has a 40% conversion rate, and I have helped that get better, so I'm cursing myself now, she comes off the ice crying, and I'm like, okay, we're done. I said, why are you crying? She goes, Dad, because it's over. Shit. Okay, so we sign her up for the Southeastern Female Hockey Association. She shows up at her first practice at dark 30. She got me up 2 hours before. 5 o'clock is early. We go to the rink. She walks in. There's a pink jersey. She's super excited. 2 of her friends are there. She gets on the ice. There's 4 dads, 1 mom. She doesn't stop smiling the whole time. I know the 6 ways in which you keep people in the game, and absolutely every of them, one of them, were executed within the first 15 minutes. Okay. And then after the game, she looked at me and she goes, Dad, can we go out for breakfast? And I'm like, well, that's awesome. I can't wait to do that. So we go out to breakfast. And I'm sitting across from my 6-year-old daughter. And she wants more, and I want more, and I'm making every adult mistake. Those terrible questions that you ask, how's school? What subject's your favorite? Like, I am making, there's no other way to say this. Sorry for those I'm the grandson of a roofer. I was shitty at this. I was terrible. I'm like, God, what do I do? So I go home and I said, well, I'm going to try ChatGPT. Like, what would you do in the past? You'd call a friend, you'd have a book, whatever. You look at a book, you go to therapy, do something, okay, to try and make this better, if you cared. Or you may just go through it for many years. And I asked ChatGPT, I said, hey, can you make this better? And it came back with all kinds of things to talk about the game. And I went, that's the number one reason why kids leave the game is because of a bad experience with a coach. The number two reason is because parents won't shut up about the game. I'm like, that's not the answer. And then I forgot my own rules. I forgot to give it a roll. I said, okay, wait a minute. You're Dr. Becky. None of this gentle parenting stuff. The sturdy parenting stuff is what I want. I really like what Dr. Becky has to say. You're Dr. Becky. Here's the experience. Here's the opportunity I have. With what you know, how can I make this breakfast everything we both want it to be? And it gave me a little bit of a playbook, and I used a variation of that playbook. Turns out my daughter really likes silly questions. Like, if that lamp was chocolate, would you eat it? Okay. But that spurred the juices, and she was asking questions. I was asking, and by the third breakfast, we were there. I was like, hey, I'm not shit at this anymore. And for the rest of the year, we had those breakfasts. And then going into the summer, she's like, can we still go to breakfast? I'm like, of course we can. And this year hockey started up, and it's still terrible to go to a rink at 6:30 in the morning. But that breakfast is worth it. And I guess what I would say is my hope is that you can use it in your personal life and in your professional life to make the things that matter in a tactical way better. And if you can do that, and if more people can do that, I'm in. I'm in. Thank you, folks. I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you so much, Matt. This was a fascinating conversation. And I'm more positive about AI. As we go through it, in the beginning I was very skeptical, and I think it's up to us to make the best of it, right? As you mentioned. So now we're going to move into our panel discussion. So I'm going to invite you to join our panelists in the stage. So if the panelists can join, please, I'm going to introduce you whenever you get there, so I can have like the order here. And again, the full bios are in the website, but I'm gonna do a condensed version. Yes, you're all there. Yeah, all of you. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let me see. I'm gonna start with your right. So Dr. Debasmita Mukherjee, she's an assistant professor here at UNB. And motivated by how human teams collaborate and the potential of working alongside adaptable AI, she's dedicated to creating safe and natural communication frameworks for human-AI interaction in social applications. Her research explores the factors that affect trust between humans and the AI assistants they work with. She brings together an interdisciplinary team for the design of trustworthy AI systems using sociological, linguistic, and psychological perspectives. Next, we have Sam Poirier. He's an entrepreneur and proud two-time graduate of UNB with a global perspective shaped by a childhood spent in Scotland, West Africa, and the Middle East. Sam launched his venture, Potential Motors, back in 2017. He led the company on a dynamic journey from building its own off-road EV to developing advanced vehicle control software for industry giants, securing approximately $14 million in venture capital to fuel its growth. Sam's achievements have been recognized by Forbes 30 Under 30 in 2025, yeah. And the Globe and Globe Changemakers list. Passionate about fostering the region's startup ecosystem, Sam serves as an advisor for J. Herbert Smith Center, sharing insights from his ongoing journey with aspiring entrepreneurs. So. Now we have Scott Everett. He's a futurist, entrepreneur, and engineer with a passion for driving innovation and empowering positive change through technology. As the co-founder of Eigen Innovations, Scott has played a pivotal role in advancing AI-driven solutions for industrial quality control. His background in mechanical engineering and leadership experience as both CTO and CEO have shaped his unique approach to solving complex problems with data-driven strategies. Currently, Scott leverages his experience to explore the future of technology and its transformative potential in industries worldwide. Last but not least, Ray Fitzpatrick is a VC turned entrepreneur who makes finance accessible to entrepreneurs. With extensive experience in due diligence, investor meetings, and investment direction, he offers invaluable insights into what investors seek in promising ventures. Currently, he's the CEO and founder of Profitual, a fintech startup that delivers financial intelligence to other startups to better plan and analyze the finances of their businesses to make better informed decisions. Ray is also an instructor of entrepreneurial finance in our master's program. And now I'll leave it to you, Matt, to push the conversation. Oh, we just need to push the button up there.
Certain things you can't fix. Okay, perfect. There we go. When they asked me to facilitate this panel on AI for impact, I know most of you probably thought, hey, impact for your clients or impact in the ecosystem or impact in your company, but I'd like to start a little closer to home. You heard my last story about my daughter. I'm really curious. How are you using AI in your personal life to either limit a nightmare that you don't want to do or to amplify moments, etc.? How are you using it personally? I think that's going to be telling for me on how I take the rest of the conversation.
Thank you. That's a good question. And it's going to be a profound answer, but a cop-out answer as well. So I have the privilege of being a professor, assistant professor at the university, but that means that I can do research that really, that I'm passionate about. And I'm trying to solve sexism using AI. So, and that impacts me as a woman and person of color in the society, but I'm very glad that I can bring that into my research to make some real world impact. My introduction had that I work on how we can make more trustworthy systems. One of them is the problem of gendering with AI. When designers and engineers make AI, they put in some of their stereotypical designs, and a lot of those designs are gendered in nature. They are supposed to cater to the wider audience, and I don't want to talk too much about my research, but so I do, day in and day out, I look at consumer reports and research and how we can tackle those stereotypes by making better AI designs. And so, yeah, it's a...
Do you have any tips for the audience? Because, I mean, the only way that I can get at this is getting better at asking the question of the LLMs or the application sitting on top of the LLMs. Is there anything this audience can take away so they can start to...
Yeah, so I think being aware is the first instance. If you think about your voice assistants and you think about why do they default come in women's voices, and why is it that UNESCO came out with a report 2 years ago, and they said that people can be make consistent sexist jokes or innuendos towards voice assistants, and they just their response is haha, literally. And a lot of research has shown that because nobody faces consequences to being an ass to AI, they feel that they don't have a consequence to real humans. So being aware of these design choices and as consumers, you can ask for better design choices, right? If you want a gender neutral voice, or if you want companies to, for example, if you are saying something racist towards a voice assistant, the voice assistant will direct you towards resources against racism. So you can demand companies to do that for other problems. So I think people are not aware because these stereotypes are baked in. They're really ingrained in us. But being aware makes us better consumers, I think.
Sam, how do you use it in your personal life?
Well, I'm going to have a much less profound answer maybe than that, but I use it for almost everything. But I'll tell like quick story how I use it and how my mom uses it, which I think is almost more interesting because she's a very big user of ChatGPT now. On my side, I think probably like the first thing that really got me interested in first time I used it, I remember I was sitting down in the office, and I think it was in like that first ChatGPT 3 or whatever it was that came out. And I remember literally jumping out of my chair because I was like, this is the most insane thing that I've witnessed in my lifetime kind of coming into existence. But anyways, the first like use case was like, I love meal prepping, but I hate looking for all these recipes and everything. So I'm sure I see people nodding. Lots of people here have probably done the same thing.
Yeah.
I like these foods. I like these things. I literally put in my weight, all my information. It's got all my data. And asked it basically make a meal plan for me. And the output was like amazing. So that's like one of my use cases. But I think my mom's use case is even more interesting because literally just last week she was telling me she's got into it about writing poems with ChatGPT. And, she would do that as a kid, I guess. But anyways, this has kind of like inspired her to be able to do it in a quicker way and for more people. And there was a bowling league that she's in, and there's an 88-year-old who had just turned 88, and she said, you know what, why don't I like write a poem for her at this bowling thing? So she got ChatGPT to kind of put together a poem based on all this information, and I was talking to her the next day, and she said like the lady cried. She thought it was just the most incredible thing that my mom had gone through and put this effort into like putting this poem together. And she knew it was assisted by AI, but it didn't matter. Like it was just the point that somebody had gone out of their way and be able to create this incredible experience, which I thought was really cool because my mom, most technology, she's not the quickest adopter to it, but something like this, because it's able to have some of these personal, like really personalized, incredible moments like that it was just amazing. Yeah.
You can translate intention to action at scale in a way that you couldn't, as long as you're commandeering, what am I doing here, and make sure on the other end you're making it personalized. But you can really, we all have these fleeting thoughts, right? Hey, I wish I could do that for this person, but I know it takes this much time, or do I have the creative ability, yada, yada. It can be a real jumpstart for that. That's awesome. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably where my use case came in terms of, you have all these thoughts and all these ideas. And so when I first started in the world of AI, it was 2011. And we were going into factories and trying to get people to understand how AI could transform industrial manufacturing and talk about crickets, right? Like it was, it was pretty nuts. Ian, he was part of that early journey. So I saw the process of how difficult it is to take an idea and actually translate it into something material in the world that actually can have impact. And then there's the challenge of, you get out into a world and you just see more problems and you want to come up with more solutions, and you get, that distraction or whatnot. So I love thinking big and being around visionaries, but the thing that was really exciting was what's the opportunity to translate this into something real a lot faster. And so I do fundamentally agree with what you're saying. I think every organization, we don't really know yet what the future organization is going to look like, but it's going to be completely different. And the way that we're thinking about building businesses today, the way we're thinking about even just conceiving what the problems are, we're just barely, like, this is a good conversation to start, because we're just barely kind of scratching the surface of these organizations that we have such a concept in mind of what an organization is. That's not going to be in existence within maybe a year, maybe 3 years, maybe 5 years. It doesn't matter, but that's an exciting journey to figure out what that new thing gets to look like, right? So
I mean, what do you do when you get 1,000 PhDs that are simultaneously working on discrete work pockets for you? What's that do to your HR? Like, I mean, because it's there now, right?
I think what's really fascinating, when we talk about systems thinking, design thinking is a really fascinating one as well. And if you think about how much time we spend into not getting biased on solutions, we have these models and these processes that we go through and all that kind of stuff because we have finite resources to execute on the solution. And so you have to basically figure out long in advance of trying something what not to try. But in a world where you can parallelize those experiments, that changes everything. So that changes the fundamental system of how we think about problems, because once you engage a problem, you learn so much that helps you with the problem. And we haven't really started to think about that parallelization of engaging problems in a completely different way.
Fascinating. Ray, how are you using it at home?
Yeah, well, actually, I led the investment in Scott's company back then. I had
Yeah,
no
thanks
clue what he
for
was talking about, but good guy.
Bet on the jockey, eh?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm with you actually on the parenting piece. So if you want to talk about someone that was like woefully unprepared to be a parent, it would have been me. Me and my wife, we adopted our 2 kids. So all of a sudden one day I was teaching up here at UMB and I got a call from social development that said, hey, we got a 3 and a 4-year-old and they need a place now. So I wrapped up my class and said, sorry guys, I gotta go, like I'm about to have 2 kids. So, you know, when you end up with 2 kids, so they arrived 8 o'clock that night, they're 3 and 4 years old, they're now 9 and 10. It's been a great ride, but yeah, I am the youngest of my family. I never babysat once before for another kid in my entire life. And one evening I had a 3 and a 4-year-old at my house. So when your kid's in full-on meltdown, it is not the time to grab the novel, you know, How to Deal with the Erratic Child and figure it out. So that's what I've found to be really useful with ChatGPT. How do I interact with my child when they're having this difficulty? You know, for 2 weeks ago, it's even a like funnier, nicer one. You know, my daughter's like, well, what's the tooth fairy's name? Like, I don't know what the freaking tooth fairy's name is. So it's like ChatGPT, what's the name for tooth fairy? So the note was, you know, keep brushing your teeth, girl, and Tina the Tooth Fairy says you're doing great. Like, you know, it's just all those little things, I guess, with parenting that I just don't have this whimsicalness to come up with. I find I can use it quite effectively.
This is what happens when you ask an accountant what he's done at home, right? Yeah. Those are great. So let's move from the personal bit, but how do we, and I'm going to come back around, I'll go back right to you, Ray, and go, okay, so how are you seeing it play out in your business or in your organization to drive impact? Either reduce minutes, increase quality, increase ability to bring someone down the curve. Like, where are you seeing some of those collisions? What does it mean in the workplace?
Yeah, so our company, we're 3 years old. We were up to 13 people at one point in time. We're down to 5 now. We generate more revenue with those 5 employees than we did with the 13. It's much easier to manage. We're much more efficient. We got huge lifts from our tech team, so using tools like Claude. You know, each one of our developers basically says they have a junior developer that works for them, and it's $280 a month. So these AI tools on our tech side have just been rapidly advancing our technology. We're probably moving around 10 times faster than we were 6 months ago. So there's just a bunch of instances like that. I'd say the real change maker for us is we brought on a new board member. His name is Brian Dunphy, quite well known around here. And it was just him poking at our team. Well, have you tried this? Have you looked at this? Ray, give them 10% of their time to mess around with things. You know, 95% of the time it won't work, but give them 10% of the time. And if you just find these little pieces, you're going to get that 10x output. And I'd say that's really what we found.
What's interesting is, and I think you hit on something important, like 9 out of 10 aren't going to work. But that's okay. You're looking for asymmetrical wins for small step changes that happen with this, right? We had in the coding bit, our BABI resident genius through the TME program, Zach Knopp. We brought him on when it was Bolt that we got introduced to through Volta Labs. And we had a development project that was going to take us 6 months to do. Got all scoped up, project plan ready to go. He saw that. He said, Matt, I need a couple days. It was Thursday. He reemerged from some deep, dark hole Monday at noon, and the thing was done. 6 months of development was done in 4.5 days. Basically, him going back and forth between Bolt and himself. And now they've just, I mean, and the other thing that always gets me is like, when it comes to AI, this is the worst it's ever going to be. That's the thing that always amazes me. How about yourself? What are you seeing at the front line?
A couple of years ago, I exited Eigen and started what's called Periphery Studio, and we've basically been building agentic systems for ourselves and for clients. And you know, it was doing the agentic coding 2 years ago, it was probably February when it really switched, and then that emergent capability is just unreal.
Yeah.
It really is massive. And so, look, I think we basically kind of built ourselves on this concept of consultancy as code. So everybody sees agentic coding in the software that you're writing, but you can actually take a very similar approach to any type of project. Yeah. And then you can start to basically, if you structure, and this is why I think systems thinking is so important. If you think about the system of how you're solving a problem, and you can structure that digitally, and then this leads to really good context management, where now information is organized in a way that the AI can actually understand it, access it, and you're starting to build out sort of this depth of context. You can apply it to any type of problem solving. Like, I got a call from Dhirendra a couple years ago, and he's like, "Can you teach a course?" And I was like, "How much time do I have?" And he's like, "It's next week." And
you too.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was AI, machine learning. I'm like, that's a lot of work, right? But all of a sudden, you can do things that you never thought you could do. Like, you can learn back end, front end. You can learn these systems that you thought were untouchable because they're so difficult to understand, and within a short period of time, you can understand them. And I think from the development standpoint, one of the things that we need to start educating our developers on is the fact that they have to develop vision. You're not just getting a spec anymore. The people who are the 10X in that industry are the people that have the vision for where is this going, what's the product, that can actually interpret and start to guide more than just, I'm building this feature. So that you have to kind of become this pseudo, I think, resource that you're no longer doing the work, but you have to understand the goal, the objective. You've got to be thinking like the product manager, the CEO. You've got to be thinking like the developer, the back end, the front end. When you can put all of that together, you're a really, really dangerous individual. And I think that's part of the transition that people have to realize in this next phase.
Well, now you're choreographing a team. Because you're working with all these, so you're not a single producer. You're a conductor.
And that's I would say my learning about vibe coding.
Yeah.
Vibe coding, you can create something very, very quickly, and it's that 80-20 or 80-10-10.
Yeah.
And it's really, really interesting to see what you can come up with very quickly. When you want to create something that's a real solution for the real world, that next 20% is still hard. Yes. And you still have to have good organizational principles. You still have to manage your agent team like you would a development team of 10 people. And without that organization, it's going to go very, very awry, right? So you still have to, everything's old is new again. I think we're seeing that. Like, you still have to approach things from a fundamental organizational level, and then you can really get just massive output.
Yeah, and you hit on something that I think it might be helpful for everybody. We have seen, you got to decide how you're engaging with AI. Are you using it to augment a single skill, or are you using it to basically commandeer a team, or are you using it to learn? And there is a way you can turn it from an answer machine to a tutor, and it will ask you, it will enter the Socratic method, etc. So for everybody in here, like, if you're using it as an answer machine as a student, like, stop, use it as a tutor, get it to question you, like, engage in the education process, but you got the tutor there. And that's, we're doing that in our HR departments on that, but you got to fundamentally rethink how you show up on the front line.
No,
Sam?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I think one of the biggest use cases that we got from AI at the beginning, and it's interesting, is now we talk about AI all the time, it's LLMs, like that's just a go-to, but like what you were doing, computer vision, that's all AI, it's just in the computer vision space. That's very similar to what we were doing doing in that space. And we when it first came out, I remember the first I was really excited about it. So I said to the team, like, we're going to take the afternoon here, and we're just going to, like, basically, solve a problem. Everybody has to, like, solve a problem essentially, and we're going to sit down, and you can only use AI for it, which is not how you should use AI necessarily, but it's a really cool way to do it, because it forces people to understand what the limitations are and what the benefits are. And I found after that, one of the biggest use cases people were taking away from it is the vibe coding definitely became a big part of it in terms of just speeding up development work, but they were using it to be able to understand and do research into more challenging problems that I typically wouldn't have time to do. So we'd often put those things off, and I found there's a lot more ideas kind of coming up to the surface that typically would get kind of pushed off to the side, and it was because there's more time and capacity for it. So I think that's one really interesting use case there. The other one that I found personally, when you're leading a team, there's a lot of like really challenging decisions that you have to make along the way that require, typically you speak with advisors or different people who have experience in that space to kind of work through challenging problems. But I found these AI systems, you can provide context around a situation and almost like role play through different outcomes in a way that I found extremely helpful for working through like challenging situations. And then you can kind of leverage advisors or people that you respect in different capacity to be able to get, maybe more prepared for those types of conversations and come to decisions a lot quicker, I've found. Yeah. Which is pretty incredible.
I love that. The board of, it's one of the use cases I use all the time in the longer sessions, is just who's your personal board of advisors, who are they, and who's your professional board of advisors, and if they're people that are either dead, alive, have a canon of research out there, you can commandeer their knowledge now in a pretty accurate way to advise you through situations, which is just mind-blowing, really.
Oh yeah, I saw yesterday Ray Dalio, famous investor, he's putting out like an AI version of himself that anybody can get investor advice from. Yeah. But that's the world that we're starting to enter into, which is crazy. And the last point I'll say around all that, which I think kind of feeds off what you were saying, is I feel like companies are going to be built so differently now. Because if you build with the idea of building context from the ground up and having that available to AI to be able to work with as you build the company, then you could have systems in there that have the context that, beyond what you as a CEO would have or founder would have from the get-go, that could be available to every single person on the team, which I think, I find context creates conviction, and that's for people, but I think it's applying to AI too. If you have the right context and you build that out in the right way, then we're going to be able to build stuff just so much quicker.
I'm going to steal that line. It's a good one. Context builds conviction. Yeah. So I'll give you one of two options to answer this question. Either the impact you're having, either in academic studies, et cetera, or if you want to, we got a lot of students here. This is upending the way that I show up. It's upending the educational model. What would you say to students on how they need to interact with their degrees now? And how do they do university now? You can answer either one. You can say, no, I'm not answering that one, Matt. But what's that?
Review your work.
Review your work, yeah.
We taught a course together, and AI just came out, and that was...
the bottom line, would you like me to do a one-pager for you?
Yeah. So I think I'll give an answer to a mix of those two questions. Perfect. So AI came out, artificial intelligence. Along the way, they realized that these are great approximation engines, and you don't necessarily need to have the depth of domain knowledge in order to solve complex problems. Like the whole part of computer vision is based on the fact that without human, you train it, yes, but it becomes independent enough to function, if not better than a human eye, right? So they detect faults in manufacturing, like tiny faults that a human operator would take much longer to process. That isn't so. It democratizes the playing field. So you can do. So you may not have as much domain knowledge as you would probably require, say, 10 years ago in order to solve a problem. But that is not to say that you do not need domain knowledge. And I think that is what students need to remember, that you cannot, AI is it's a tool, and that's what everybody has been saying. You cannot do away with domain knowledge. The first step to doing AI, and I don't just mean generative AI. There's lots of other AI techniques that are out there that are still useful, very useful. Your data and the quality of data that you put in basically dictates how well your AI model is. And without domain knowledge, you will not know whether this data is useful or not. So it's very important to know that. The other thing, and this is what really excites me, is that we are no longer in silos anymore. a mechanical engineer doesn't just do mechanical engineering things anymore. Things are getting blurred. My research, in my team, we have people from sociology, linguistics, and psychologists. And they make, so the sort of AI questions we ask can only be answered by a team of people who are not from the same department or faculty, or they bring different perspectives. And so now is the time, so I'm excited with AI because it allows us to push the boundaries of what we think of as fields anymore. So yes, please do interdisciplinary studies.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So very exciting, but at the same time, hold on to gain knowledge, because without that, you're going to be replaced. What are you anymore?
It's a true story. Yeah, and look, I don't think AI is going to replace people, but I do think people who don't use AI are going to be replaced quickly, right? I mean, I tell every 22 to 25-year-old, you better get your resume in, and it better say AI-enabled X. Don't care what X is, but you better know how to use AI with it. Otherwise, how do you come down? Okay, we got about like 7-8 minutes left. And I want to kind of flip the script because this is for this audience. Is there anybody in the audience that has a question for this panel so we get some of the answers out here? And I know I've got a couple mics, and Igor's like, what are you doing to me? But is there anybody that wants to ask a question of somebody on here? There's got to be someone brave. After someone goes, especially the student. Yeah, here you go.
I was looking for the other mic.
Yes. Now, what is good with AI, it is, as you said, it could be a tool. It can solve, when we talk about solving a problem, I believe we can talk about technical problem again, because yeah, now I believe the technology goes too fast, but the only thing that it cannot replace, and what we need to teach now for the next generation, it is about human. Emotional intelligence. It is about psychology. It is about sociology. It is about philosophy. Because AI, even there, I have seen some people talking about a philosopher that say, yeah, we don't trust AI about that, and things like that. But do you think that, because I'm a PhD in interdisciplinary, okay, do you think in system thinking, people, sorry, I'm going to break the academic system. It is based on dualism, reductionism, you know what I mean? And what I'm trying to say, do we think that the AI will help the other disciplinary field to realize that a real complex problem, when we talk about human, it is not based with disciplinary, but it should be interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary. Do you think that system thinking with AI will try to break the academic system to see that, okay, so now if we like to understand what is complexity, to understand what is a human, we need to be much more interdisciplinary? Thank you.
What I'm trying to figure out of that is that you're talking about technical and then human. So the question for the group is,
do you think that the system thinking and AI will allow to realize the academic system that now they're going to focus much more and to promote interdisciplinary studies?
I can't answer that question, but I think someone to my right can answer it. Yep. What do you? You're going first for sure. I'm looking at all these guys.
Well, my short answer, TLDR, is yes, and it should be. And let's take large language models and ChatGPT. One of the why people love to use it, and if you go to the Reddit subreddit group, ChatGPT, people have emotional connections to GPT-4. GPT-4. They talk about it as though they say that this is my friend, this is my therapist, and it begs the question: how did they build such good systems? They have been able to build such good systems because they have trained it in such a way as to bring a lot of psychological behaviors. They've tried to program into it. It is always supposed to be friendly towards you. It is always supposed to agree towards you. And all of this comes from human behavioral studies. So, I mean, AI as this big game changer has been in the forefront since 2021, 22. But even behind the scenes, people they have been trying to make better interfaces using human factors studies, which have their origins in psychology and behavioral sciences. So it is already interdisciplinary in nature. Now it's becoming even more so, and it should be. People should not be siloed anymore in their specific disciplines.
Does anybody have anything to add to that? Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think maybe not purely academic, but I think one of the big things that we need to realize about the state of where things are at, coming from 10 years of creating AI systems, machine vision, it turned out to be really wildly difficult because each circumstance was so unique, each factory, each application. And then what you realize when you actually take a step back and you look at the broader system is that there are so many other systems outside of the technical one that we were trying to solve, the humans, the shift changes, the corporate mandates around quality, all these types of things. And a lot of that information isn't really digitized, or it wasn't digitized in a way that was interpretable by the AI of that day. What an LLM has the capability to do, which I think is the most important thing, is the integration of the broader systems that most of these systems live within. We talk about getting knowledge out of ChatGPT. I think the biggest power of ChatGPT is to translate information between systems, because those systems can actually talk. So it's interdisciplinary from an academic standpoint, but I think that the big changes in organizations and systems is going to actually be that interdisciplinary kind of translation that LLM can provide.
Yeah, what's interesting is that a lot of gains in any field come from lateral thinking, right? Applying what works in one area to a field that hasn't really gained from that knowledge yet, or multiple fields. I also think that the biggest advantage I had early on with AI was my academic training to go, look, you actually want the contrarian answer. I'll often get an answer and then pop up a new window because I'm talking to a new expert, and I'll say to it, look, give me the opposite view of this point, right? And then if you pop up 2 or 3 windows and get opposite views, you can dramatically reduce hallucinations. You can add nuance to the conversation. But what you always have to, or at least what I always had to watch out for, was sycophancy. It can trick you into thinking you're the smartest thing in the goddamn world. And look, none of us are. And I say it that way because it will talk to you in that way because it wants you to interact more with it. It's designed to draw you in. So I actually think that the dangers of AI is actually how psychologically adept they are at drawing humans in. I mean, why should we have a connection to a non-sentient being? I mean, that is scary, bluntly.
There's some AI psychosis cases.
All kinds of AI psychosis cases. And there's some really terrifying things on the edges. By the way, if you're a parent, check your kids' chats. For God's sakes, don't let them chat without it. Look at what's going on. Check the chats, right? Because, if it gets on a loop, it can send you to some pretty dark places. And there's congressional hearings if you want to hear. I don't want to end this on a dark note, but there's some pretty dark places that you need to be aware of, I think. Any final? Yeah.
I can use my big wheel.
You big. Okay.
So I work mainly in a software scenario, and I think it's probably more relevant to you, Scott, where how do you see AI as a functional bridge? Because technology, still there's resistance in those hard trades, and those are the things that humans are still going to have to do for a long time. How do you see an effective means of integrating AI into a management prompt quality system inside of those fields that isn't cumbersome and actually gets adopted by, guys in steel toes?
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant question. And I think there was a study in the big data world, everybody was putting up dashboards, and it was all about dashboards. And then there was research came out and said that 99% of people will look at a dashboard for about a week, and then they won't pay attention to it anymore. And the number one reason that is because they didn't design the dashboard. So I think that there's a real need for co-design in this process where we can come in and try and mandate and create all these solutions. I think that the self-evolving solution capabilities of AI to evolve when the people are discovering the problem for themselves, if they get that ownership, then all of a sudden it's theirs. And it now is not something that you're forcing on people. They want it because they've created it.
You can't do change to people. You can only do it with them. I think it's such and that doesn't matter if it's blue collar or white collar, it's the same thing. But especially in blue collar when they're swinging a hammer, if they're not doing it with you, they're not doing it.
So that process of, I think that's where you need to start to think about the system. What's the system of engaging that individual to actually be not just a pipe fitter, but also a software designer? Like, when you take a step back to that level, because that's where you've got to start to probably think about the problem space, right?
Yeah. This is where, theory of constraints, variation of constraint, Lean Six Sigma, DMAIC methodology, John Kotter or Process Change Management, these are all disciplines that have models that are well proven on how you engage people to work through complex problems to get to solutions together. And if you want to work with people to go faster, I would suggest you get well versed in those methodologies. It will be a bit of a pain because you have to slow down, but then you go way faster because they own it. I don't know, I'm staring for Igor. Igor's like, you ask one more question, you're out. Okay, so we're done with this one. To the panelists, thank you so much.
Thank you. Testing. Hello. Oh, no. Thank you so much, Matt, Debashmita, Sam, Scott, Ray. Amazing chat. And I do agree that we can't let it take the wheel, right? We've got to be a co-pilot in that situation. So many different applications for AI. We talked about many of them here. And there's one in particular that we just want to take a deeper dive with Ray. So I invite Ray to come back and chat a little bit more about the field of finance and the intersection of these worlds.
All right, let's see if this works. Hey, there we go. All right, so I thought this was going to be more controversial. I wanted to basically give a more practical look of how AI is used in finance, and then we had Matt come on and gave a very practical view on how AI is being used. So we won't beat it to death, but what I want to do is just talk about, how is AI being used in finance right now? What kind of resistance is there? What's some, tools that are available? And then basically, how do we get wider adoption? So did the intro on the panel. So I am a chartered accountant. I spent about 10 years as a venture capital investor at NBIF. Then I went to go start my own startup company, which was called Perpetual. We raised a little over $2 million. We've been at it for 3 years now, and we're providing financial intelligence to small businesses with the assistance of AI. Since the startup can be a whole lot of not fun, I'm lucky that I also own a distillery and have unlimited amount of vodka, gin, and whiskey at my disposal. So, is there an accountant shortage? Short answer is yes. People aren't getting into accounting anymore. So there's a decline of about 7% in new accounting graduates from 2020 to 2022. Even bigger issue is all the accountants are retiring. So CPA predicts that 75% of the current accountants are either at or nearing retirement. So there aren't a lot of us left. Is this a big deal? Who cares? If you're going to own a business, you can't just not do accounting. CRA is going to have a massive issue with you. So we need accounting, but unfortunately there aren't a lot of people that are doing it, which makes it really hard to find an accountant. Numerous firms, whether we're talking locally, nationally, into the States, they're just not accepting new clients. The big four accounting firms, your Deloittes, your EYs, your KPMGs, they actually scrambled last year around tax time, and they had to offshore about 20% of their work just to meet deadlines. So even these massive firms, Matt showed a slide there, and I saw PwC was actually laying people off. They are scrambling for accounting talent. So again, don't know their whole inner workings, but I assume they laid off of a lot of the operations people, not the people that are actually doing your tax returns. So what's the impact? You know, a lack of accountants, an increasing workload, you're going to get higher hourly rates. If you look at those big four again, in 2015, they were charging $400 to $700 an hour, which seems exorbitant. Now they are charging $600 to $1,500 an hour for a partner hour at one of the big four firms. It is getting incredibly costly to get your hands on finance expertise. So even venture capital, private equity, you know, the private investors have noticed this. They said, wait a minute, this is a need to have business. It's highly fragmented. You have all these little firms all over the place. There's huge margins. If you're charging $1,500 an hour, there's some money to be made. And there's an increasing amount of work. So VC, private equity especially, what they are doing right now is they're getting into the game. They're buying firms, which is what they're really good at. They're consolidating them, which they're also really good at, with the hope that they can optimize them and eventually sell them. So how do they optimize? Technology is where they're going to get the big efficiencies. So they're going to use software, they're going to lower the cost, they're going to get a bunch of time savings, and as a result, they're going to be able to optimize these firms and then sell them hopefully for a big profit. AI is a driving factor in how they believe they're going to be able to gain these efficiencies. You'd think, though, like everyone must be doing this. You know, this can't be rocket science. You know, people in accounting must be using these AI tools. About 80% of small businesses across North America are using QuickBooks as their accounting platform. There are other ones, but QuickBooks is by far the dominant player. They really have two product lines when it comes to what they offer for accounting software. They have their online, which is their cloud version, and then they have a desktop one. You would just assume after all of these years, most people would be on the cloud version. But about 24% of all of their users are still on the desktop version and won't upgrade. You must think, well, okay, if people are on this desktop version, it must have a lot of value that the online one can't replicate. This is directly from QuickBooks website. Make the move to cloud. Switching is simple. You see that chart over there? Those kind of charts are usually reserved when companies say, look how great I am in the left-hand column, and look how bad my competition is on the right. They're doing it to their own product. They are begging you, please, please get off QuickBooks Desktop. We don't want to service it anymore. We're going to charge you to call us. We hate this product so bad, so can you please get off of it and move to online? So you have the accounting platform saying, please modernize, please use the latest in technology. But what about our accountants? You know, there's not enough of them. They're charging a ton of money. They must be really excited about all these advancements in AI. Unfortunately, our profession demonizes it. 70% of all accountants are heavily concerned about the use of AI. Andre and Matt stole my thunder. I do have the Deloitte thing up there where they generate a report with AI. Unlike the law profession, which says, like, you know, let's use AI and let's galvanize around it. Yeah, there's issues, but we'll get over it. Every time something like this happens, the CPA board shoves it down our throat and says, see, don't be like them. They'll find even the ones that, when there's oopsies in the legal cases, and say, don't be like those lawyers. We're better than this. Don't use AI. So, people that are actually doing the books, actually doing the accounting, heavily skeptical on AI. So this brings me to my main point. There's lots of technology out there. A lot of it already exists. We don't need to get into the world of AI agents that are 100% doing all of your bookkeeping, that's actually moving money from account to account automatically. There's lots of great tools that are out there that can automate a bunch of your finance processes utilizing AI. QuickBooks is already built in AI. You know, before I came here today, I snapped receipts on my phone. Those journal entries already got coded. You know, there's no need to have this shoebox full of receipts that goes to the bookkeeper once a month. So the technology is there. The adoption, which I think we've kind of been hearing here over the afternoon, really relies on people and their willingness and desire to use it. So this was a funny slide for me because I wanted to label it like the old way of doing things and the new way of doing things. But when I think about 25% of people still being on desktop, that's not really the old way of doing things. Unfortunately, it's the current way of doing things. There's just a better way. So if you look from an efficient standpoint, what does this look like in finance? It looks like QuickBooks Online, pictures of receipts. You're talking about month-end closes that are 2 to 5 days. Cloud-based financial planning and analysis tools. That's a modern tech stack that's very easily accessible for probably a couple $100 a month. The way a ton of businesses are running is QuickBooks Desktop. Can't get a hold of your data unless you're sitting in front of your computer. You got a shoebox full of receipts that you bring to Barbara the bookkeeper once a month and make her sort through them. You got 5+ days to close the books. I got clients that can't get their books closed in 20 days, which is ridiculous. And you're using Excel to basically strap everything together. So in summary, it really is no longer optional to find efficiencies in these financial tools that we're using. The cost is not going down for an accountant. If you got to pay them $1,500 an hour, I'd rather them work less hours. So it's definitely a need to have. There's lots of tools available that can help assist you along this journey. Most of the major players are using a lot of this AI functionality quite effectively now. And like Matt mentioned, this is as worse as it's going to be. It is going to get better. Biggest hurdle that we see is people and their willingness for adoption. If you are a small business owner, one of the big things that we notice with our clients is they're like, well, my accountant deals with that. Well, that's not good enough anymore. If your accountant's using Desktop and is getting you to bring receipts to them, you might need to talk to them or go find a new accountant. So get actively involved, and kind of building on the last panel we did there, like one of the things I know, and I don't know where education's going. I'm not a professor. I don't profess anything, ever. But when I have a good time teaching, when I get really jazzed to go to my class, it's when the students are curious. My former colleague, like Andre's here, and we used to talk about it all the time. Curious, ask questions. Matt's got 4 panels open, querying ChatGPT. Well, ChatGPT isn't going to do that for you. You need to be curious and drive to the answer. So if you're asking those questions of your finance team, you're going to get a much better result. So curiosity to me has always been the thing that kind of sets apart, a great class of students that I get to work with, that we get challenged with. It's also the people that made the best employees anywhere that I've worked. So curiosity is definitely the thing that I think is going to drive a valuable outcome, both in education and in work. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt, Ray, Scott, Deb Schmitter, and for an incredible panel discussion, presentation, and obviously, like Ray said, he was hoping to see a little bit more controversy. I think we're okay with the way the conversation went. So I think it was probably very balanced, and that is what is phenomenal about today's conversation. So huge round of applause to the previous section. That was. So many of you here already know that we have a strong partnership with across the border with Harvard, and we have our dear friends who are here with us. And I'm going to first call Sam McGee to come in and talk a little bit about the partnership, what we have going on, and then I'll announce the teams that are selected for our second cohort, and then Meg Murphy is going to come in and sort of wrap up. You're getting ready. Sam.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Dhirendra. Hi, Sam McGee, Director of the Lehman Program on Creativity and Entrepreneurship at Harvard College. What we are is a series of accelerators that take student ideas and accelerate them to impact. We host these globally. We have one in southern Brazil, obviously one in Cambridge. Where is it? Africa, Pan-Africa. We had 8 countries last year, which is amazing. and here. The intent of these cohorts is to take student ideas, and we're all social impact. Everything is related to a United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. Steward those to impact, and it's been absolutely fascinating and a blast to do this. A question was asked earlier on the panel, what gives you hope? And we all try to answer the questions in our head, right? Students, they do. They give me so much hope, and that's why we do this. Was there anything else I was supposed to say? That's it? I did have one other thing I wanted to say. So I've been meeting with folks all morning, my friend Amin, Carol, and I've heard the word creativity, right? Energy, love, right? Humanism. Dancing around with the word entrepreneurship more here in this room than anywhere else, with the exception of my shabby little office back on campus. So this is why I'm here, so thank you for that. And the reason you guys are talking about creativity, entrepreneurship as dancing partners so much and so well is because you have a visionary here at your lead, Dhirendra. Thank you so much.
As most people know, I'm a huge fan of Sam and what he's trying to do around the world and build a community of social innovators that just come together and look at a world in a much more positive light, try and build a beautiful world. And he's going around the world just trying to part with some of that infectious Sam that we have. So fortunate that he's part of this journey, and so fortunate that you get to see him, meet him. Please hang out and engage with this incredible human being. So just about to announce the next cohort that's been selected, and then Meg will come in and wrap up a bit of what she's heard and gathered. Sure. But once this is done, or if you are some of the selected teams that are here after the conference, please come to the front, and then we'll take pictures. All right. So the teams that are selected is Team 4. That's a very creative name, Team 4. Right? But it's a highly competitive process, so I'm sure there are reasons. We can come and ask them later on. The second team is Verdette and Biobinovate, Mayo Verse, Luca Mikimi, Hello Buddy, STEM Block, Modulus, Renewables. Huge round of applause. The reason I picked on Team 4, by the way, if you're wondering, I was going to actually miss them from this list because I was like, what is that? Anyway, huge round of applause. Again, thank you very much. And then I'm inviting Meg to come in and say a few words.
Dr. Shukla. It's an honor to be here. Again, I'm Meg Murphy. I'm part of Harvard Health Lab Accelerators. As Sam said, we are social impact accelerators that have satellites around the globe. So Dhirendra just asked me to talk about what I heard here today. Well, it was so thought-provoking and wonderful to hear what I heard today because it was thoughtful. There's such an emphasis on the systems thinking is so important to understand we're all part of the system and we need to step back and look at the big picture. We certainly need that in the United States right now. It's wonderful to hear the conversation happening here in Canada. It's courageous in many ways to step back and think about it. And then the embrace of AI and running at what is not really a problem, but more of an opportunity if you use it the correct way, which is some of the speakers have addressed how to do that, with this emphasis on curiosity and agency and imagination. That was all just beautiful because we need this kind of hope and we need the embrace, and bending the arc toward the good is something Sam and I very much believe in and what we're trying to do in entrepreneurship. And it mixes, just as people have addressed, right in with AI. I mean, almost all, excuse me, the student teams we work with are embracing AI across disciplines to create solutions to pressing problems. So this is thought-provoking, beautiful, visionary, which is, of course, what I would expect here, and just lovely to be here, and thanks so much.
All right, so thank you, Sam, Meg, Dhirendra. We are about to wrap this up, so I'm just gonna say a few more words, and we're gonna go for drinks and stuff. Wow, what an amazing event! I'm the most anxious person I know, so it's always good when everything runs smoothly in this event.
Can I second that?
Yeah. So I have witnesses. Yeah, so yeah, another one back there. So just to wrap up here, huge thank you to the Wood Center, everyone, the staff. Aurora Productions, our partners in the AV and streaming back there. And Chartwells, who is providing us with coffee breaks, food, and the food we're about to have, and drinks outside. So round of applause there. And to wrap up here, as the J. Herbert Smith Center, we are a very small team. Probably you heard that a lot. And we all work together when these types of events are happening. I know Dhirendra mentioned my contributions, but the real mastermind is Amanda. And I don't know if she's close by. Amanda. Oh, she's working. You see? She's doing, oh, there she is. So thank you so much for organizing everything and running everything and making my anxiety go down a little bit. Yeah. And thank you all our panelists, our speakers, but you for joining us here today. And stick around, network, have a drink, and we'll see you next year. Thank you. What I forgot.
So Captain Anxiety won't say it himself, but we want a big round of applause for Igor. So Igor and Amanda carried the weight doing this and organized everything here. And in fact, actually, we were flipping the room because there was something in here that finished 45 minutes before we did this. So we moved all the chairs and the tables out and brought everything back in, and we're setting up the stage. And it was fun. So that was why he was so anxious. But thank you very much, Amanda and Igor, for everything you did.
All right, food and drinks outside. Let's try. Good. What? Oh, the cohort, please stick around for pictures. The H2A Canada cohort. Hi.